Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Birds pregame live here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave, where Philly loves a winner. Check out our new digs. We're actually, you can hear us, you can see us. We are at Jack's Bar and Grill here in Rivers Casino, and you can tell by the loud noises out there, it's going to be hype to preview this game tonight between the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, both 1-1 teams. It's going to be a great showdown. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds, alongside my Inside the Birds co-host, Adam Kaplan. What's going on, Adam?
Good to see you, my friend. And I promise, it's all Eagles, no Ben Simmons talk tonight.
Yes.
It's actually about the division. The division is actually on. It's up for grabs tonight.
No Phillies talk either? No. We're going to keep it to the Eagles as well. Damn them Padres. Next to me right here is former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant, also co-host of the Q&A show on the Inside the Birds platform. And, of course, we're going to hear from Quentin Michael, co-host of Q&A, a little bit later. Now, Greg Cosell, he's playing hooky tonight. So if you see him walking down your street, tell him he's missing time. No, he promises he'll be back next Sunday. Couldn't make it. We'll have him back as soon as we can. Eagles, of course, coming off that tough loss against the San Francisco 49ers, which now feels like 3 months ago with everything that's gone on in the city. The Cowboys coming off a big win out west against the Chargers. All right, so they're 1-1. Both teams are 1-1. You can tell, like I said before, it's jam-packed. You got Eagles fans spilling in to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook now. They're placing bets. They're eating food. They're drinking beer. They're sitting back in their recliners on these billion flat screen TVs that you can watch the game from at every single angle. You can't ask for a better accommodation. So come on down to Rivers, place your bets, come watch the show. We'll be here until 7 o'clock, and we'll be here for every Eagles game throughout the season. For those watching at home, please take a minute right now. Retweet the show, share the show, hit the like button for the show. We really appreciate all the support. And if you have a question or a comment and you're on YouTube, you can ask it in the YouTube box, and we will do our best to get to your answers or your comments. Really appreciate it. We're going to start the show like we do every time we can. We got some breaking news, although it's kind of made its way across the Delaware Valley right now. Tonight, there will be no Jordan Mailata at left tackle. Injured his knee in practice earlier last week. Adam Kaplan, first to report it was an MCL sprain for the fourth-year left tackle. So, Adam, he's not going to play tonight. Andre Dillard steps into the role. But what do we know about Jordan Mailata, how bad the sprain is, and when he might be back?
Yeah, Mailata got hit on the side, caught sort of friendly fire. A teammate, unfortunately, hit him on the side. The good thing is it's not a serious injury. MCLs are not repaired. You just rehab it. I wouldn't count on him this coming Sunday against the Chiefs, but we'll know more as the week progresses, but it's not a long-term injury. As you said, Andre Dillard now is the fill-in left tackle. Now the question is, what if Dillard got hurt or doesn't play well? What do you do?
Right.
Because Jack Driscoll is on injured reserve, as we know, so he's not eligible.
LaRaven Clark also on injured reserve, practice squad.
Right, practice squad injured reserve. So they're down on depth, because we thought coming into the season before Driscoll got hurt, I mean, this is one of the deeper teams they've had, but now you've got all these injuries, so it's a little bit troublesome.
And to your point, what if Lane Johnson gets hurt? I mean, it works both ways. They really don't have right now a guy who you feel comfortable going in and playing either left tackle or right tackle. Not that you felt all that comfortable with Matt Pryor in the past, but at least you knew he could go in there and execute the plays. Now you're at a situation, Jason, where we've talked about depth a lot in the offseason and the preseason, and we talked about certain areas where you could lose a guy or two, and we'll get into Brandon Brooks and Dickerson, but on the outside, with they were deep, but with no Driscoll, no LaRaven Clark, got to pray for health right here.
Yeah, right now we need Lane Johnson to stay healthy. Otherwise, we got Andre Dillard in there. Well, we have Andre Dillard tonight anyway.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of the Winston Justin game. I was there.
Oh, I wasn't going to bring it up. Well, yes, I was, but he got it first.
Yeah, but hopefully that's not tonight. But the last time he was in there, it wasn't the greatest time in 2019. So hopefully he can come in and play a lot better than he's performed this preseason. He's been getting blown up in preseason games and also in the inter-team practices. So hopefully tonight we can keep Randy Gregory and the guys off the quarterback. So that's what I'm looking forward to see how he holds up.
And, of course, it's going to be Andre Dillard's first start since the 2019 season. He missed all last year. He was banged up in training camp, didn't beat out Jordan Mailata. They've been cross-training him at left and right tackle. But this is you brought up the whole Winston Justice thing, and it's fair because it's not just a 1 o'clock regular season. I mean, it's Dallas,
it's prime time.
Monday Night Football, prime time, and somewhere Adam Kaplan, right? I hear Trey Thomas' booming voice going, "Where are your damn knee braces?"
I know.
He's always calling for these guys to wear the knee braces, and I don't think everybody is.
So one thing we should add, Brett Toth will be the top backup tackle on that. He's the last man standing. They don't have anyone else. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised by this. I just got the transaction from the NFL today. They did not, we'll get to Dallas's. Actually, no. Suapeta, I just got this. Okay. Suapeta was elevated from the practice squad. He is a guard, though.
Right.
So Brett Toth is your top backup tackle.
Right.
Suapeta would help. Nate Herbig's the first guy off the bench. So Suapeta was brought up. Dallas activated Justin Hamilton, a former Eagles practice squad defensive tackle, because they are really low on depth on the defensive line.
That they are. It's not just Andre Dillard, obviously making his first start of the year tonight for the Eagles, but also on the right side of the line, Landon Dickerson, the rookie second-round pick from Alabama. He fills in for Brandon Brooks, who is out, indefinitely for a couple of weeks there with his injury. So Landon Dickerson at right guard, Andre Dillard at left tackle. Listen, we're going to come out of this game in the future knowing if the Eagles are pretty secure up front or if they've got reasons to worry.
Well, he's going to perform a lot better than he did this past game. Coming in just cold, not knowing you're going to be in the game, and then having an entire week of practice is totally different. We know that this kid, when he's healthy, he's been a player in college, and I know that his skill set will translate to being a really good player. So I'm looking forward to tonight, and I think that he's going to hold his own tonight with the week of practice and preparation.
All right. If you're counting at home, though, 3 significant starters who will not be there for the Eagles tonight. That's Brandon Graham, obviously out for the year, Brandon Brooks, and, of course, Jordan Mailata. In better news, though,
who played great this past game.
Jordan Mailata?
Yeah, they had to put Nick Bosa to the other side.
Yeah.
And go against Lane a little bit, which is a concern. But Jordan Mailata played really well this past game.
Absolutely. We will get to the offensive line. I want to say, in good news, better health news, Zach Ertz, and it was looking a little dicey there for a little while, did come off the reserve COVID list. He is active, should be able to play tonight. We'll see what he can do. He missed just a couple of days of practice,
but a veteran
like that. He did practice Saturday, so he should be ready to go. Let's talk about the injury report. We already mentioned Brooks is going to be out, Jordan Mailata out. Rodney McLeod missing a third game now as he comes back from the ACL. Now, somebody asked me if it was the wrong decision not to put him on PUP to start the year, but if you did that, you would have had to make him out for 6 weeks, correct?
Yeah. Yes, correct, and that's why they didn't do it. Now, we know what happened last year with Alshon Jeffrey. They did the same thing, and he was back to like week 9 or 10 or something like that?
Right.
It totally backfired.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand if someone felt that it was, but he is practicing. Can you practice when you're on PUP in full?
Yeah.
Okay.
What you do with Rodney McLeod's not on it. He's actually on the 53.
Right, I'm saying if they had put him on the PUP, would he be? Yeah, right. So now they're getting practice in for him, right?
Correct.
It's a little bit different because Alshon had no motivation or incentive to come back during that time, just because he was a little bit disgruntled. I think that Rodney is chomping at the bit to come back. So hopefully that kind of encouraged him to get in the training room and work out and get better as quick as possible.
Sure. Otherwise on defense, Eagles relatively healthy. Obviously, we mentioned Brandon Graham out for the year, but as far as the 53 goes, Davion Taylor, he's dealing with a calf injury, but he's been kind of dealing with that for a while now. Earlier in the week, offensively, Jason Kelsey and Miles Sanders were on the practice report. A foot for Jason, a chest for Miles, but as they did practice this week and they should be good to go. That's it for the Eagles. I mean, last year this was a 30-minute segment, but now we talk about the Cowboys, and you're talking about a team that's really depleted, as Adam mentioned, up front. Defensively, they've been out without their star defensive end, DeMarcus Lawrence, Carlos Watkins, Dorrance Armstrong, key players in their defensive line rotation are out. And Michael Gallup on offense, their deep threat, is on IR with a calf strain, so he won't be able to go. They'll have Cedric Wilson and Noah Clark, is it, that they occasionally fill in?
I think it's Noah Brown.
Noah Brown, that's right. Noah Brown who fills in. But really what's important for them, fellas, is Amari Cooper, who's going to play. Now, here's the interesting thing. Amari Cooper is on record as saying he's playing, but he's got a little bit of a rib fracture there, Jason.
So
a minor rib fracture. So as a person who's played that position, You know, it can't be easy to do your cuts and get tackled and everything when you got a rib fracture, right?
Well, they'll give him a little bit of a little Toradol or something like that. He won't feel it for at least the first half. In the second half, you decide if you want to get some type of shot or not. But if I'm a DB and I hear that, Steven Nelson is definitely the type of guy that will do it. I don't necessarily know if it was Darius Slay, but Steven Nelson should check that rib a few times and figure out which side it's on and make sure that he jams it, hits him in it a few times. You have to as a player. You have to.
Sure.
When we were doing our show yesterday with Quentin Michael in Fishtown, I asked him exactly that. So what would you do? He said, I absolutely would hit him.
You got to. You have to. You have to.
Right.
Yeah, now, if this were back in the day,
legally,
and Trot was still on the team, he would grab the last guy on the 53rd guy, that last special teams guy during warm-ups, and say, hey, go you start a fight with Amari Cooper and then get him in the ribs before you get kicked out, right?
This is in Atlanta, man.
I'm telling you, Trot. I love you, but I know you would have done that, all right? Look, though, one big key for Dallas today is the return of their pass rusher, Randy Gregory. Now, he's been on the COVID list for quite a while. We don't know what kind of shape he's going to be in. We don't know how many snaps he's going to play, but he is a good pass rusher when healthy, and he should be on the field tonight. Now, we'll talk about that matchup versus Andre Dillard there a little later in the show. But also, Nevin Gallimore, dislocated elbow. Tristan Hill, ACL. I mean, these are guys who were playing a lot of time for the Cowboys in the past. So you got an Eagles offensive line that's beat up, but you also have a Dallas defensive line that's beat up. It's very interesting to see which team's able to win the trenches.
Lyle Collins, too, is out this year
because
of suspension.
Right. Collins, their right tackle, suspended. And Gallimore was going to be a starter D-tackle. So they're basically down 6 players on their defense. Plus Donovan Wilson, their starting safety, is not expected to play with us. He's in practice since week 1.
Correct.
Keanu Neal, another guy who's now playing linebacker. He's for safety, right? For Dan Quinn in Atlanta. He got put on the COVID list. They have a COVID issue. So a lot of these situations, guys, give the Eagles some favorable matchups. Now the question is, will the head coach put players over plays like he said he would?
We are going to definitely get into that philosophy. Obviously, you mentioned Sua Opeta getting called up, elevated from the practice squad. Was anybody else elevated that we know of?
No, just him.
Just that one elevation. All right, Eagles fortifying the trenches by calling up Sua Opeta. And for their sake, as you mentioned, you pray that they don't have to rely on that depth too much.
Yeah.
All right, let us talk about Dallas week, because I've made this argument before as we kind of move into the game here. It didn't feel, to me, like Dallas week in the Delaware Valley. I mean, you had the Ben Simmons saga going on. You've got the Phillies in the pennant race. And it's also kind of early. Week 3 to me is a little early for this rivalry. I just feel like you're starting to learn a little bit about Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts and Gannon. It just doesn't have that, like, Dallas thing going on.
Yeah, we're still enjoying the nice weather. It's still nice outside. People are not thinking about, football completely yet.
Right.
So it is a little bit weird, but I've been getting it when I go into Wawa or wherever else I go. Man, we're going to beat the boys tonight. I'm like, yeah, we'll beat them. So I'm trying my best to be encouraging to them.
Now Quentin Michael, your co-host on Q&A show, would always say Dallas week, he would just kind of wake up mad at the world, wake up pissed. Did you have that in it? Were you the same way?
I didn't wake up pissed at the Cowboys. Sorry, I didn't wake up pissed. But because I knew, I thought the Giants were a tougher opponent during my tenure and my time.
Sure, they were.
Because they would hit back. If the Cowboys, if you went in the game with a physical mentality, the Cowboys would fold every time. It was just their mentality, their makeup. You hit them hard, you keep on pounding on them, they were wilted. Redskins and the Giants would fight back during my time. I'm not saying it's the time now.
Yeah, 44-6, line 1. Right? I mean, that's exactly what happened. You guys came out that 2008 game. You smelled the blood. You knew everything happened that needed to happen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was like an onslaught. I mean, it was not even close. You're right. You got Tony Romo a few times, and it was over from there.
Yeah, it happens like that. A few years ago, Eagles and Cowboys, and see who's going to win the division and go to the playoffs. And the way the Cowboys came out flat, didn't want to play, the Eagles came in. And so I think of those things, think of those games. I think it's still the same mentality. I think Amari Cooper quit that game. I think
that was the game. Yeah,
he quit that game. Remember that game?
In fact, I was in the locker room, Jason, and I asked him, I said, Amari, what happened? He said, the coaches took me out of the game.
No, my God.
Well, they did it, I'm told, talking to their former coaches.
Yeah.
They didn't think he was competing high enough.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, that's not good. Now, the guy's a phenomenal football player.
Phenomenal football, yeah.
But he's right. It was late in the season. Was it week 16 or 17?
It may have been week 17. I think it was week 17.
And that staff needed it. They needed a win badly, and when they needed him, he didn't show up. But he's a phenomenal football player. But the one thing, not having Michael Gallup, who's their best deep threat, that changes their passing game. So I wonder what they're going to do, because the Eagles always try to this new staff tries to take away deep ball, because they play more zone defense. 91% of the time, the Eagles are playing zone defense.
Gosh.
So I do wonder what Dallas is going to do without Gallup in this particular game. We're only here in week 3.
Let me ask you something, because this is clearly two teams, I think, that are strongest in different areas. I think the one common bond is that, obviously the Eagles have their injuries here on the offensive line, but they have the Eagles have a good offensive line, and Dallas, when healthy, has a good offensive line too. But they seem to be strong in different areas. Do you get a feel, Adam, on which team you think is the better team from 1 to 53 right now?
It's a great question, because of all the personnel losses both teams have. See, if you just went, okay, Eagles offensive line versus Dallas's D-line, the Eagles should not be pressured very much tonight. Theoretically, and obviously Randy Gregory, as you guys mentioned, something to keep an eye on. Dallas now without Gallup, okay, how are they going to deploy their personnel? That's a question. Certain areas of the team, Eagles D-line is way better than Dallas's, though Micah Parsons is going to play D-end tonight, I'm sure of it.
Right.
But the Eagles have some advantages. Dallas has advantages with Tony Pollard, who looks like right now the best backup running back in the National Football League. They'll unleash him in the pass game.
Wide receivers.
Right. So I think it's close, but Dallas's personnel losses, particularly on the defensive line, the Eagles have a major advantage, particularly when they want to run the football. They should have tremendous success.
Whose roster are you taking? You got to coach a team. You see their 53. Well, I don't even want to say because there's a coaching staff too. But which team are you taking?
With both teams healthy. You got to. If it was just roster, you have to take Cowboys.
I would think
if it was just roster, if both teams were healthy, because you still have Lyle Collins, who's a potential Pro Bowler at right tackle. You still got Tyron Smith, who's a Pro Bowler, perennial. You got Zach. You got a bunch of guys up front, right? Martin. And you got those receivers on the outside with 2 stellar running backs. Tony Pollard is playing better than Zeke, and they're going to have to make a decision at the end of this year who they go forward with. And so when you consider all of those things, and then you got Trayvon Diggs in the secondary, who's going to be a Pro Bowler for at least 4 or 5 times in the National Football League because he's a high turnover guy.
Right.
And you got a Malik Hooker that's a backup to DeMonte Casey, which has a lot of potential in the first round to getting the ball back as well. So I think their roster is pretty good. Now, I say all of that. The Eagles have the better O-line and D-line. So that can even things out more than what we think it could.
Absolutely.
And because you can have CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper and Gallup and all of these guys. And if the D-line's getting home, it doesn't matter. But Gannon got to he has to deploy some blitzes. Can't sit back 91% of the time and play zone. You got to fire zone. You got to get in some man, take some chances in order to get some sacks. So we'll see how that goes. But it's not looking. That's a different subject. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Look, one thing we know is that there's a lot of people on the Eagles side here that are new to this rivalry. You have a new head coach, you have a new defensive coordinator, and even the quarterback, although he was here last year, now the spotlight's on him. Now they're game planning for him. So it's a little bit new for everybody. Now, Nick Sirianni did not hide, though, from the fact that this rivalry means something to the team and the city. Some new guys may want to come in and talk about one game at a time. Nick Sirianni certainly understands that this game is more important than just the win-loss column. He spoke about it earlier last week. Here's what the Eagles coach had to say.
How heated the rivalry is, and that it's the rivalry that feels to me like, since I've been in the NFL for the past 14 years, like this is the one that feels most like the college rivalries and that's pretty special. I mean, those are always games in college that are legendary games. They play those clips from around, if you're thinking Ole Miss, Mississippi, they play those clips over and over and over again. And it's the same thing here. Like, you make plays in this game, they're going to be shown for a long time. So know how much this rivalry means. Seen so many plays from this game, the highlights of the Cowboys or the highlights from the Eagles being played a bunch as I grew up as well.
All right, the most interesting comments there from Eagles coach Nick Sirianni is that he kind of looks at Cowboys-Eagles like a college rivalry, some of the great college rivalries. And as he said it, you saw him wearing the Beat Dallas t-shirt on. Some might think that's pandering. It's all part of the rivalry, though. Jason, I'll ask you.
I like that.
You knew I was going to throw it to you on this. He says college rivalries. You, as a Michigan alum, probably play in the greatest college rivalry there is, Michigan-Ohio State. There's no question about it.
Not in the last 15 years, but
look, the outcome,
in history.
the outcome doesn't matter. The actual game is one of the best rivalry games in college football.
Yeah.
You played in Eagles-Cowboys. Is it comparable?
Is it comparable later in the year when it really matters? That's when it's very comparable, because usually it comes down to that, where it's one team or the other that's going to win a division or get in the playoffs. And most of my time, it came down to us and the Cowboys, Giants at the end of the year. So earlier in the season like that, it's not the same. It's like the Red River Shootout earlier in the season. Nobody really remembers it. Texas and Oklahoma, they talk about it, but it's not like, Ohio State, Michigan at the end of the season, Iron Bowl at the end of the season, so on and so forth. I think it's a special rivalry, but the end of the season is a lot better than the beginning of the season.
Guess what? Guess who they play in Week 17? They host Dallas in Week 17. 5 out of the last 6 Eagle games are divisional.
Yeah,
So,
which is probably going to make or break their season.
If that game, Week 17, means something, people will be out of their minds.
Out of their minds.
Right.
Absolutely out of their minds. But you're right. Week 3, look, it's Dallas week. I get it. It's got some juice, but it doesn't have the typical juice that you would have.
Right. One thing Nick was right about, though, is that these are the games that produce the memories that seem to last a lifetime. And we still talk about, Buddy Ryan versus Tom Landry, fake spike. We talk about Donovan McNabb's, 42nd play where he scrambles left and scrambles right. That's over 20 years ago at this point.
Westbrook taking a knee at the one.
Brian Westbrook taking a knee, 44-6. We brought that up.
Yeah.
Notice how all these have a common thread. Eagles winning.
Lito.
How about the Mark Sanchez game? Everybody remember that one? Oh, that was not good.
Barry Switzer going for it again and getting stonewalled.
Yeah. So just add this rivalry to the latest chapter for new things for Nick Sirianni, who's obviously finding out the challenges of being a first-time play caller for the Eagles in the NFL.
Yeah.
After a wonderful debut in Atlanta where he puts 32 points on the board, his offense does. Then he comes home and the offense lays an egg, just 11 points in a 17-11 loss to the Niners. That kind of stands out because of a couple of bad plays. We talked about the 4th and goal play that went nowhere, the botched field goal, the touchdown rescinded by a penalty. But what really sticks out, fellas, is the wide receivers and tight ends. There were very few targets to your top playmakers. And for tight ends, and Adam, you've been bullish on this, 4 overall targets to the tight ends. I know you spent the week talking to people, league sources who watch this game, who are familiar with what the Eagles do. What was the feedback you got about that plan of attack against the Niners?
There were some opportunities to use the tight ends. They were open. Sometimes the quarterback missed them. Sometimes they were not. Play clearly was not to them. But there weren't a ton of them. But against Dallas, I'm just telling you, Dallas plays a lot of man. Dan Quinn has completely changed his defense. They're 11th in man coverage. They're playing man about 38% of the time, which is a high number in today's NFL. But because of the issues Dallas has in their secondary, Jason brought up Malik Hooker. Malik Hooker didn't play a lot. He technically started last week, but he didn't play a lot. They're down in the secondary. Their linebackers don't cover particularly well. They can rush. And they just don't have a great defense overall. Dan Quinn did a good job, but let's face it, people say, oh, they only gave up 17 points last week. Guess what? The Chargers had 2 touchdowns called back, okay?
Yeah.
So let's not forget about the Chargers have a lot of offense.
Right.
They lost a lot of yards in the game because of the penalties. So I'm not buying this defense. But we're going to learn a lot about Sirianni. He did not call a good game last week. You and I have talked to a lot of people that we trust who graded that Eagles tape last week, and they were very critical of Sirianni. Less so the quarterback, was more about the head coach.
Right.
He's got a rebound here. We're going to learn a lot about him. If he does not take advantage of these personnel issues that Dallas has on defense, I'm going to lose a ton of faith with him as a play caller.
Jason, the one thing that stood out, and I'll get you on that, is that in the aftermath of the loss, Nick Sirianni said, I got to remember it's about players, not plays, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like he kind of got lost in the cuteness of a scheme, and then you look and see Dallas Goedert only 2 or 3 targets? I mean, does he need to get the ball in Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders and Devontae Smith's hands? They just have to be able to get that ball in their hands. And Jalen Reagor?
I think that's the acceptable thing to say after a loss. I really think that it comes down to this. At the beginning of a coaching tenure, you're trying to please players, you're trying to please the ownership and management and all those things. We're trying to get Jalen Reagor his touches, we're trying to get Quez touches, we're trying to get Devontae touches, Miles, Goddard, so on and so forth. And you get kind of lost in the sauce of who are the main playmakers. The main playmakers on our team that's going to have a matchup week in and week out, is going to be Dallas Goedert, it's going to be Miles Sanders, and it's going to be Devontae Smith. Those are the three that you focus on. But lately, we've been trying to get Jalen Reagor the ball, and he hasn't proven yet that he can get open consistently in one-on-one coverage. That play on the sideline where he was pushed out says that exactly, because if he runs straight at the defender, try not to avoid him by running around and stack him, he leaves space on the sideline. It's a very basic day one. The coaches tell him this each and every week. But sometimes when you get in the game and you're young, you revert back to things that you used to do, which is run around players. We talk about this all the time. You can't run around players in the National Football League. You make them move out of the spot or you go through them. Running around will get you beat every time.
That changed the game. That touchdown being called back changed the complexion of the game.
I would add to what Jason's saying is this. Coaches will tell you that they look at their group of players who they were handed. Every week, who are the guys who I know are going to win? Dallas Goedert wins. He just doesn't get the ball enough because we know he has a block, but he should get the ball more. Miles Sanders, when he doesn't drop the football, wins in the pass game. Kenny Gainwell, we didn't mention him. Absolutely can win. Right. Yeah. We saw that in training camp. It was ridiculous. Something happened so that the
Quiz is in there too. He's showing up there.
Yes, yes, but is he just a D threat?
Yeah.
They need someone who could catch the ball in the immediate area. So the term that I got, I felt was the best of all the people I spoke with. Disjointed was the best term that I got. The game plan last week, there was no marriage between play calling and the offensive rhythm or structure of what they were doing.
Right.
You marry it by the players that you have. And that's what Sirianni's talking about, players over plays. He clearly said, we're going deep. We took 7 shot plays. Okay, you did. Well, then what's your second act? You didn't have one.
Right.
This is what doomed Chip Kelly. We don't want to go that far, but Chip Kelly never seemed to know what to do next. And this coach seemed to be baffled of what to do, where he wasn't, though they won. They seemed to win every matchup in week 1. What's he going to do this week? I am looking forward to seeing what happens if Dan Quinn brings something he hasn't seen before.
Right.
Dan Quinn already started a lot of man coverage. He didn't do that before. Ran Seattle's cover 3.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see how he reacts, the chess match between Quinn and Sirianni.
Now, Jason, you know this. Like, play calling is an art form. I mean, you see some of the best play callers in the league, whether it's Sean Payton, Kyle Shanahan. It's not just calling the play for the down and distance, right? There's a flow. There's a setup. When Ronald Darby was an Eagles cornerback playing in Jim Schwartz's scheme, we would see some pretty good play callers run slant, 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 and then later sluggo, sluggo. You set up what you're going to do later with what you're doing now. Do you feel like we need to see that from Nick? A certain purposeness to the play call.
There's always every motion, every shift, different formations, all should be a setup for later.
Right.
You're getting intel for later. What are they going to do when we cross motion? What are they going to do when we shift? What are they going to do when we run this slant in front of them? How are they going to play it? We know this week Trayvon Diggs gave up the most big plays by any corner all of last year. So therefore, you throw a few in front of him, he's the perfect candidate for sluggo or stop and go.
Right.
So hopefully he can set those things up like you talked about. But this week, it wasn't just the setting up of plays, it was when he ran plays. For an example, the 3rd and 6, rolling your quarterback to the left. And yes, everybody sees Dallas Goedert in the flat and saying, get the ball to him. But it's very, very hard for a right-hander to feel comfortable with that outflanking throw to the tight end in the flat unless he has his shoulders around. Therefore, you wonder why that play in that situation is called for that young of a player. And of course, we know what happened on the goal line. I can go through a million things about that.
Do you think he should, or does he have the opportunity in that regard to flip the play so that he's throwing the same formation on the right and he's able to make that?
They wouldn't flip the play because they're into the boundary, but you can run a similar play that may not have him roll around and turn his back to the defense.
Right.
You can do a ride read where the running back goes right in front of you, get the same play action fake, and then now you're square already and throw the same flat pattern. So there's multiple ways to get to it. But I think that turning your back towards is for more of a veteran quarterback when it's going left.
Sure.
When you think about this, I was there with Andy Reid and Marty Morningwig when Bill Walsh threw in this Q8 option. We see that play on the goal line where it's a guy that rolls to the flat and they roll out to the right. We see that play all the time. They had a rule that they would not roll it left with the game on the line. 3rd down, 4th down, they would not roll the quarterback left because it took too much time. It gave the defense an extra step, and the quarterback couldn't get his shoulders around in time.
It's not a comfortable throw.
It's just not a comfortable
Game's
throw.
on the line. You need your quarterback to be assured, confident, and comfortable. Makes a lot of sense. Speaking of the quarterback, it seems through 2 weeks now with Jalen Hurts, we've seen 2 different kind of guys, right? Week 1, Atlanta, very surgical, very methodical, picking the Atlanta defense apart. And then as Adam was talking about in game 2, it was like a little bit more of a gunslinger appeal. Now, we like gunslingers in Philly, but we also like to see the passes caught and the ball not underthrown and things like that. So it's kind of hard to get a gauge right now on, is that a function of the scheme and the play calls, or is this Jalen Hurts, after week 1 of being questioned about the air yards, was he trying to strike deep and get the ball downfield? The numbers say that he only completed 50-some-odd% of his passes.
Just over 50%.
I didn't watch that game and think, man, this guy's really inaccurate at all. Like the way the numbers say, it felt like, as Andy Reid might say, and by the way, Andy seems to be doing better.
Yes.
Thankfully for Andy Reid. As he might say, being a hair off on certain plays. So do you think right now he's still getting timing together?
Yes.
And you can do those same plays, you just need to be in the right rhythm?
Yeah, so the plays down the field, that's what we were talking about earlier. Adam mentioned that the plays down the field. Now, a lot of the plays down the field, in the second half, he had pressure right up where the two tackles got beat. The 2 tight ends got beat,
right.
And Landon Dickerson got beat at the same time, and he had to get one up, and it was short. Yep. The first one that right before the Jalen Reagor play, he had Devontae Smith going toward that end zone, and he was short. The reason he was short because he was in practice mode. He rolled and he looked real pretty and he didn't set up quick enough to get the ball out. Those are things that a young player will commit, those types of offenses, if you will. That will happen. So I think he's going to get better at those things.
Okay, that sounds like it's a fairly easy.
That's an easy thing. Yeah. He was just too calm, too collected. It felt like practice, and it's not like that in the game. It's always faster. The coach tells you to get 12 yards in practice, you get 9 in the game. That's just how it is. It's always faster.
Adam, what was the biggest question coming out of the pre-draft process for Jalen Hurts, who many people told us they felt he was graded as a 3rd or 4th? The Eagles obviously didn't want to wait around, got him in the 2nd. But what was the area you remember hearing most of that Jalen would need to improve upon to be a successful NFL quarterback?
It was accuracy. It was certain throws you got to hit by metrics that teams would have. But the positives were obvious: toughness, coachable, winner, handling everything that's been thrown at him with class. There's a lot to like about him. Players around him play hard for him. They flock to him. So there's a lot to like. But the accuracy thing, based on tape, was not good enough.
Right.
And last year was tough. Just everything with the Eagles' offensive line. The good thing about last year is at least he got to play, right?
Right.
This year, week 1, his accuracy was off the hook great. But the argument against it would be, if you look at the tape, the throws were not challenging. Most of them were throws he should be able to hit.
Yeah.
Second week, I think it was more in the play calling and the coaching than it was on the quarterback.
Sure.
Because that was, to your point, like when you saw the 12 completions and the bunch of incompletions, didn't look that bad, and it wasn't.
Right.
As Jason was talking about, he needs to speed things up a little bit. That's something that I'd heard earlier about him. But there was nothing that could not be corrected. It's all being able to be coached with it, and he is. But it's going to take time. But the thing that you go, well, why was he a 3rd or 4th round pick? Not real big physically, didn't have a great arm, better than average to good, nothing special. But you did see that the 91-yard catch and run. He could make that throw when he's set up correctly.
Yeah, that's what I want to get to, Jason, because you're best to really break this down. I saw after the Devontae Smith slight underthrow and then the Quez Watkins long pass that a lot of people were like, see, he's got a strong arm. And I feel like Jalen Hurts can make any throw in the NFL, but I feel like every quarterback in the NFL, mostly everyone, if you gave them 3-4 seconds, they can throw the ball 40, 50 yards, but there's those guys like Vic, those guys who can throw it like that really quickly and get the ball 40 or 50 yards, or those outs, right? When your receiver's covered, he breaks to the out, and you fire it into the side. Yeah. That's a different level of arm strength that we're always looking for the next great quarterback to possess.
You don't always need that if you're smarter.
Right, like Drew Brees?
Like Drew Brees, like Kurt Warner.
Right.
A lot of these guys played a long time, won Super Bowls because they were smarter and they were out on time. It's just anticipation. When you don't have a Josh Allen arm who can throw the ball literally through your body, right? We don't have that in Jalen Hurts. but you can make it up by being on time. And to get to your point, to the Quez Watkins down the field 91-yarder, he was forced to speed up his tempo because what? He was backed up, and you have to have urgency, and you got to get the ball out before somebody's called for holding in the end zone. So the coaches is constantly telling you, hey, as soon as you get to that 5th step, we got to get that ball up. Sure. So it was emphasized a lot more in that situation, and it was an accurate throw.
All right, scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the best NFL arm. Jalen Hurts is a...
1 to 10?
Yeah.
10 being the best?
10 being the best. 10 being Vic, Flacco, who else
yeah,
has got
he's a 7.
Like you said, Allen,
he's a 7.
7.
You know, it's
right now. 6'5", 6.
Yeah, 6. Yeah. So it's somewhere in there.
Yeah. A bit above average.
You can win with that.
Yeah. So 7. You don't need to be. Everyone doesn't need to be. Now it helps you.
It sure helps when that
helps
pressure's coming in.
Right.
And you got to whiz it in there.
You got to
Especially
whiz
when it's cold.
But a lot of times, big arms are late. That's the thing. A lot of time, really big arms are late. And you look at history, the guys with the big arms, even Josh Allen at times, when he's bad, he's late. You know, so and that's what happens. You see it a little bit later.
Longer wind up, because I talked to Flacco about this when he was a rookie. He had to learn how to shorten up his throws because he had a long release. Now, Jeff, you had to know for us in the spring about the coaches were working with Hurts on his windup?
Yeah, what they talked about was what you're saying, just to make sure you have a compact windup. I think they saw it in college, a little bit more of an elongated windup that they were, and maybe even more so last year a little bit too, where they're just trying to work on that part of the game. You always hear Nick Sirianni say he doesn't mess with what's up here. He's trying to get footwork down. But obviously, if you have a windup, isn't necessarily messing with what's up here. It's more about how quickly you're delivering and getting it to your target.
Yeah.
Especially in a West Coast offense, right, where everything is about timing and you have receivers with sight adjustments.
Yeah. He can go and talk to his buddy Kyler Murray about that because he doesn't need a full, he can get that ball out pretty quick and he doesn't need to follow through with it, you know?
Yeah. Kyler Murray is a freak show.
Yeah.
All right, so last year in his only start against the Cowboys, we saw Jalen Hurts complete 54% of his passes, but he threw for 342 yards. He had a touchdown, 2 interceptions. It was a kind of an ugly game, 37-17 loss. One trend we're seeing I wanted to ask you guys about. The Next Gen Stats put out a chart that showed where Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball, and we're showing it for our viewers right now. 66% of his throws beyond the line of scrimmage are going to the right side of the field.
Yes.
Jason, you know that people, and by the way, thanks to Zane Gonzalez, our analytics intern, for pulling that. Good job, Zane. You know that defenses get paid and the coaches get the analytics and the data. Is this at all an alarming trend, or is this where the plays are being made? So
that's comfort.
How do you see it?
That's just comfort. You know, that's guys, sometimes it's comfort, and maybe a coach is placating to that comfort, but I believe that's on the coach. That's on Nick Sirianni in order to get some reads left where he's 1 and 2 left rather than going back, right every time. And I think it's sometimes where Devontae Smith has been on the right side a bunch, early in that first game. He caught those 4 passes all on the right side, to get down the field.
Right.
So, but I think that can be adjusted with coaching, and Nick Sirianni can change that whole stack.
Sure. You know what's surprising me, and I thought we were going to see this a little bit. Nick Sirianni talked about it in his last press conference, I think on either Saturday or Sunday, Adam, but he was asked why the Eagles are kind of hovering around league average, maybe a little lower in things like pre-snap motion, and some of the stuff that you'll see a lot now. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, obviously, but a lot more teams are doing it now. I think we thought the move from Doug to Nick, we were going to see a little bit of that, and yet we have not yet. And I wonder if that's just 2 games,
Frank Reich is big with moving the tight ends from the left to the right and right to left, but when you talk about Kyle Shanahan, they led the NFL 2 years ago, their Super Bowl year, in pre-snap motion. I think it was around 70%, which is unbelievable. With deception and disguise and all that. Yeah, we haven't really seen that a lot. I'm not sure why. Again, it's only 2 games, so we don't have a lot to go on here. Whereas defensively, I think we pretty much know Gannon's zone. It's kind of what we knew in February.
Right.
Not creating the turnovers, but offensively, I do wonder. I do wonder because Dallas has a lot going on in defense that's not positive in terms of injuries.
Right.
So will this be the night where they started unveiling a little bit something new? Because they try to keep it simple week 1. It certainly helped against not a very good defense against Atlanta. They had a clearly went in with a plan of throwing the ball deep in week 2. That didn't work. It worked 1 play where didn't seem to be an act 2. Now what's act 3 here? What's he going to do? What's he going to bring week 3? I'm fascinated to see that, where I think they've got other than what Jason said with Trayvon Diggs, they're not very good at the other corner spot.
Yeah, Anthony Brown.
Right.
Anthony Brown's more of a slot corner.
Yeah.
Right.
So how are you going to take advantage of that? You can't keep trying to throw the ball deep. Are you going to do slants? You guys were talking about that. What are you going to do?
Yeah, what was the feedback you got on what DeMeco Ryans did well to combat what they thought the Eagles did?
They got physical with them.
Second half.
Yeah. DeMeco he's running cover 3.
Right.
They were not, other than the one play, now I give them credit, they knew what they had with Josh Norman. Okay, Josh Norman doesn't run very well. He's an older cornerback. He's clearly near the end of his career. Other than the one bomb, they didn't give everything up. They always had safety help. That was the thing. They had safety help.
Right.
And they did leave some places, as I said earlier, in the middle. But I just think it was more of what Sirianni didn't do when the Ryans did do, although Ryans is super smart. The other thing is the Eagles' offensive line, more often than not, did not get off the ball well enough. That 49er line is stout. The Dallas Cowboys defensive line is not. And the Eagles should have success tonight running the ball.
Not good for the Eagles, but it was nice to see DeMeco Ryans. Obviously, did a nice job there for the Niners. What were you going to say?
Were you going to say, and I want to just go along and piggyback on Adam there, when you consider Nick Sirianni and the pre-snap motions and shifts and all those things, when you're playing tonight with Dillard, Dickerson, Jalen, Quez, Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, it's very, very hard to implement things like that. These other teams have veteran guys. Even if they weren't in the offense, you get used to hearing it. You know, so when you have younger players, you're going to be a little bit more vanilla because they only can do certain things. And then you start to think of, and I'm not trying to, say anybody, but then you're going to think of, what systems did these guys come from?
Right.
Right?
The West Coast.
West Coast, TCU. What was Quez went to Southern Miss.
Right.
You started,
Alabama's more pro style too, right? They don't do a lot of that.
It's a bunch of these things. You got to think about all of those things.
And I'm just going to add this. Remember, Jeff, you and I talked about this last year on our show, that one of the big reasons why Peterson did not do a lot of that is because remember how all the offensive, because we were asking, why aren't they doing pre-snap?
Right.
Well, I was told that the coaches, Doug's staff was very concerned about all the offensive line changes. All the guys who would be playing at receiver that shouldn't be playing.
Right.
And when you have, as Jason's saying, a lot of newness, maybe by mid-season, if these guys don't make the mistakes on offense, they don't make the pre-snap mistakes, if they're handling the stuff mentally, maybe start doing that stuff.
Can I raise a counter argument to that, though? Because I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And I guess my argument would be if you brought that from day one into OTAs and training camp, because I looked at the Niners, right? And they got two rookie running backs out there, Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon.
Yeah.
They got 2 second-year receivers, and Debo's a third year, but he missed a lot of last year, right? Ayuk is a second-year player.
Yeah.
They had a couple of offensive linemen in there who were backups, I believe, and they ran their sets the way they normally do because that's what Kyle Shanahan preaches from day one.
Yeah.
And so Nick Sirianni, I felt, had an opportunity to come in here and spice up the offense early in spring and get these new players in and do a little bit of that. And I don't know, again, it's just 2 weeks.
Comprehension too.
But if you're not seeing
that's the big thing. That's the big thing. Like, are the players retaining it? And at some point, when do I go ahead and say, let me tailor this to their abilities rather than continue to try to do something they're not capable of, getting down at the moment. So we'll see.
Let's talk about decision making. Obviously, that's a huge part of being a quarterback. Jay, I know you brought it up in the show with Q that you were baffled by a 3rd and 6 handoff to Miles Sanders earlier in the game.
Yeah.
It looked to me like an RPO because I believe I was told actually it was an RPO and the wide receivers were running pass routes on that play. So that was the quarterback's decision to then hand the ball off against that loaded front, which seemed a little bit strange. We mentioned it wasn't just the rollout to the left. There was a couple of times where I thought Goddard leaked out to the right and Jalen was trying to drive the ball deep. As far as a decision maker, are you seeing enough from Jalen, or do you think
he can do better?
There's obviously room to improve, but are you like what you've seen so far?
The first game, he was stellar, right? But it was a lot of easy reads. The Falcons defense didn't challenge him. The first option was there. There wasn't much mentally that he had to, face. But this second game, They did some things with the defensive line who overpowered our offensive line. So you had to think a little bit quicker. You had to get the ball out. And I thought that at times he got a little flustered. Like, can he make the throw to the left for Dallas Goedert? Could he get it to him in the flat? Yes, he could. But I know at times you're trying to get that. You're trying to get momentum. You're trying to get a splash play. You're trying to get those things. And as a younger player, you begin to realize that moving the chains and getting positive yards is just as important as getting the ball down the field.
Sure.
And that was that Goddard play when he took, it was the pass to the left sideline. Goddard screaming past him over the left. He passes it, he crosses scrimmage. He has him open for a first down. And he doesn't throw it to me. He throws it deep left, and it was totally covered. I think it might have been Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
That's what Jason's talking about. Hey, that would have been a first down to Goddard easily. He just would have went right out of bounds, but it would have been a first down. And I think the more he plays, as Jason's saying, the more he'll see it. He just needs more experience.
You know, the fun game to play when you have a young quarterback is, who does this guy remind you of? And Jalen Hurts so far, we just don't have enough of a resume. But I can't help but wonder if there's not some similarities to him now and the guy on the other side tonight, Dak Prescott. I mean, they're both guys who were not drafted in the first round. Both guys who, coming out of college, you didn't know if they had the quote-unquote NFL arm. But they're both great leaders, showed great poise in year one, have that athletic ability. And as a rookie, you saw Dak run a lot more. But Dak has gradually become a surgeon in the pocket. And with Jalen now trying to get his shot, and we see that they are trying to work with him to be pocket and then run when you need to, if there's not some kind of similarity there, if you feel like he can be a Dak or even a Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, something in that mold of athletic quarterback who can stay in the pocket, throw the ball, and be a leader.
Yeah. So is there a comparison? Yes, because I had no idea Dak Prescott would be this good based on his film in Mississippi State. I just thought that it was a stretch, and I didn't think that he would be nowhere near this good. And so if we can get Jalen Hurts to get to the level that Dak Prescott is that now, we're winning. We're winning big.
That is a home run.
We're winning big, and I know Dak is a hard worker. I know Jalen's a hard worker. So there's a lot of things that they have in common.
Right.
So we're hoping that he can get to that level because I think Dak has made himself and his team a viable threat just because of his ability to enhance himself. So I'm looking forward to see if Jalen can get there. But yes, that's a great comp. I wish the comp was Russell Wilson, but I know that he's not there yet. But I wish the comp goes past Dak and gets to Russell Wilson.
Right, that's the name. That's
Lord,
the name
please.
that comes up because the Eagles did that, right? They talked about missing out on Russell Wilson when they didn't want to miss out on Jalen as a backup. They explained it that way. And then so everybody was like, oh, we got the next Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
But no, listen, I think you're right. If his skill set to me has some similarities to Dak, and if he can become that, it's a win.
The two things that he has, like I've just in my time, out of all the players that I've played with, I haven't been around a better leader at the quarterback position than Jalen Hurts. I have not.
That's great.
He has such a gravitational pull to him that wins over everyone, and that's something that's special. And he has a coolness, like I have this, and you guys can get on my back approach. And that reminds me of Russell Wilson more than than Dak.
The leadership.
Yeah, that leadership, cool, calm, and collected.
Hold on, I'm getting a call from Donovan McNabb real quick.
No,
I think he wants to talk
I love Donovan.
No,
I love Donovan.
The one, it's funny you bring this up because last year, I wound up, didn't think it was real, but I think it might have been later on. There were some issues between Wentz and Jeffrey in terms of effort, Jeffrey going after the football. There were some questions whether Alshon playing with Carson Wentz would make the effort. It may be a non-route down the sideline. Well, I talked to some Eagles folks late in the season, and they said there was something between them. There was something. They just felt like Alshon, for whatever reason, he just was not connecting with Carson. You did question the effort. When Carson was in there, did he actually go after the ball 100%?
Right.
But with Jalen Hurts, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
They believe in this quarterback. Now, whether he's going to be the long-term guy, we're going to learn a lot the rest of the season. But that was just something that I think sometimes we never could really quantify it. But there were some people with Eagles last year absolutely thought there was something between Wentz and Jeffrey. So with the effort.
Well, I can corroborate that. That's right there. They just didn't believe that he can get them the ball consistently. That was just it. They didn't believe that Wentz can get them the ball.
Carson?
That Wentz can get them the ball consistently. That was just that was there. That's the thing.
Yeah, but was it because he was focused on Ertz or other people, or just accuracy, or what?
Just accuracy to the outside to the receivers. When you go back and look at it, Carson down the field, critical situations, just wasn't accurate outside. He was more accurate in the middle of the field, and we got those stat charts, of Jalen to the right.
Sure.
You start to look at the tight ends, and in the middle of the field, that's where Carson Wentz completes his passes. Outside, when it's tight coverage, just the ball's not going to be accurate.
So that's a fascinating argument for two reasons.
Yeah.
One, because, and look, I know he's several years past Chicago, and we're done with Alshon, the era here, but he was supposed to be the guy that you didn't have to be laser accurate to. And number two, and this is just only recent, I know the Colts are 0-3 this year, but if you go look at who's catching the ball most from Carson Wentz right now, it's Michael Pittman, who sort of has that not really super speed but tall physical. It seems like the connection
is going. There. Yeah, so, connection is them there. Yeah, you never know if it's environment, if it's environment or what have you. I remember, Fitzgerald, and I was talking to Kurt Warner one year in the offseason, and he talked about his first year with Larry Fitzgerald, and he said, I had the greatest show on turf. I had Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. He's like, and I would lead those guys, and they would go and get it no matter what. He's like, I got here to Arizona, and I led Fitzgerald, and we couldn't connect at all until he told me that even when it looks like I'm open, I'm covered, I'm still open. So don't throw it far, throw it short, and I'll get it. And he realized that, and some guys need to learn that.
Well, look, think how counter that is to every quarterback who's ever played. Like, throw it to a guy in a risky situation who may not be open. But like you said, when it's Larry and you know he's going to get it,
all right, the best hands in NFL history.
Yeah.
Larry Fitzgerald. Yeah. Here's a question.
No, second to you.
Oh, I can't take that one.
Who on the Eagles, Jeff and Jason, who is that go-to guy going forward? We'll assume Ertz won't be with the team next year. But go long term here, we've got Devontae. I would have to say it's Devontae Smith, but he's not the physical guy.
Right, I think we talked about it. They're missing that kind of wide receiver with the big body and the height that can go up and get it.
I hate to do this because I'm not trying to stir up the city or the fans, but you see the success that Jamar Chase is having. And the reason he's having this success is not just because he's fast, because Devontae's fast, but he's able to elude at the line, and he's strong as hell, right?
He is strong.
He is a strong dude that you just can't knock off a pattern. Right. You can't, just push him around. And that's what the 49ers did a little bit to us, is even though they're in zone, they were playing their cover 3, they still got physical with us, and it hurts us at times. So we got to get that guy. We don't have that guy right now, Adam, to answer your question. We don't have him now.
But you see,
Devontae's the closest.
Right, your game, when you were the slot receiver, you had this knack for getting open.
Yeah.
Being a dependable pass target. Now that Greg Ward is not a part of the offense, it's like he's not even there. Where last year, or 2 years ago, he was a guy they could depend on. I don't know if they have that guy.
That's why I feel like we talk about Goddard, that guy who is big, strong, physical, throwing the ball. He can go and get it.
Their shuffle is wrong. And I'll say this. Their shuffle is wrong, meaning they have receivers at different positions that don't need to be there. Quez is an outside receiver that should not be at slot. Devontae Smith should be in the slot. Therefore, you're closer to the quarterback. You got a lesser corner on you in this modern day and age, and now you're going to be able to work him in the middle of the field a lot better, and you're going to get more value from him earlier in his career than you would outside until he gets physically stronger. And until that shuffle or till that changes, I think we're going to see more of this.
That's a good point, man. Yeah, because to watch that tonight, we're going to watch that. Who's going to be that go-to guy tonight? I hope it's God.
But back to Dak and his development and what he is now. What should be the plan to attack him tonight? We're starting to talk about a quarterback now who has excelled versus man, excelled versus zone, excelled versus the blitz, excelled versus not blitz. I mean, you start to look at those numbers, and they're really good no matter what you do to him. So how do you go after him tonight?
This is my struggle. This is my Jonathan Gannon struggle.
Okay.
Is because when you a high volume zone defense coach, 91%, like the man himself, Adam Kaplan, said today, when you're this, it doesn't take, and your D-line is not getting home. We don't have Brandon Graham, right? So you got one less pass rusher. Guys like Dak are eventually going to figure this out. And zone defense, when you sit back, for God's sake, with the game on the line against the 49ers, we run zone defense to Juszczyk at the end and give up 8 yards. They sneak it the next play. That's our default defense. When you think of those things, I think man is the only thing that's going to disrupt him with a few blitzes. The only thing that can disrupt that. Zone defense is not in our best interest. That's just my opinion.
Let me ask you a question off that. How many times in your career did you see a team change what they do? Let's say you're a total man, in this case, total zone team. Did you ever see teams on tape the next week start playing a little bit more man coverage because of their opponent?
Only a few, right? I would say the great coaches.
Belichick?
Belichick is one of those coaches that could go from a 3-4 defense to a 4-3 defense and thoroughly change the game plan.
From game to game, right?
Game to game.
Yeah.
He can go in with 12 personnel one game and then be in 4 wide the next game. It's not many of those coaches. So, with that being said, it's unlikely that we're going to go and turn into a man coverage team or something different. But what can happen is that the percentage of blitzes can go up, which can change the scheme and turn some of those zone coverage where they're backing off into a pattern read or a flat foot read, which can make a big difference too.
Well,
some fire zones.
To his point, I mean, Jim Schwartz was a good defensive coordinator. I know a lot of people are still sour about some things, but if there was one criticism against Jim, it was too much front four. And then last year was too much man defense when his corners were getting burned. But as you can see with the switch over here to Jonathan Gannon, who's playing more zone, blitzing is still at the bottom of the league. Right now, they blitz just 5 times all year. 6.9%, ranks 31st in the league. 3 blitzes against San Francisco, 31st in the league last week.
Yeah.
They have 3 sacks. So they are getting pressure, but they only have 3 sacks, which is different from a Schwartz offense. And 11 hits so far through 2 weeks, ranked 18th. So you're talking about a guy who is constantly criticized for not blitzing enough. And again, thanks to Zane Gonzalez for pulling that analytical data for us. But Jonathan Gannon's not doing anything different as far as blitzing.
No, he's not doing much different from Schwartz. And then you wonder why you go out and you spend more money on Steven Nelson and why you have Darius Slay. These guys you get paid in this league to play man-to-man. You don't get paid in this league I say this. You get paid in this league to get picks, and you get paid in this league to play man-to-man. Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten any of those right now. So, I mean, you wonder why you need those guys getting paid that much money and still playing zone defense.
Five blitzes all year. That is literally like 2 series for Todd Bowles. Right, he had 5 blitzes before his players were even off the bus.
Yeah.
And they lead the league. Tampa Bay at a 44.6% compared to the Eagles' 6.9%. Obviously, it's just a different ideology, but I do wonder, though. I know you talked about getting Steve Nelson, but in general, this Eagles team, back end, outside of Darius Slay, has not really proven itself to be great at one-on-one coverages, and even Steve, against a speedy receiver, might struggle. So I wonder if this is all part of the growing with Jonathan being a little bit of afraid to come after these quarterbacks and leave these guys one-on-one.
We knew this when you and I gathered information in February about this defense. We knew it was going to be zone coverage, heavy zone coverage, okay? But we were told, now they're doing some disguise, but they're not doing as much as we thought we would get. Mm-hmm. And that could contribute to the lack of turnovers. And the other thing is the DB's backs are to the ball a lot in this defense. So unless you hit the quarterback and force a fumble, I don't know that we're going to see it a lot. I don't know if we're going to see a lot of turnovers.
That opens up the whole discussion about, do they not force these turnovers that you're referring to because they're not an overly aggressive defense?
Yeah, I will go back to this point because God bless his soul, Jim Johnson. I've seen Jim Johnson with the game on the line, and every good defensive coordinator that I've ever seen with the game on the line, and you need a stop. Your team needs a stop. There's only 2 coverages. It's some form of man-to-man or zero, which is another form of man. So there's only one coverage that you do.
Listen.
And so for him to default, go cover 3, cover 2, whatever it is, and we need the ball back, I'm not sold on that. Because I would rather lose coming after somebody rather than sitting back and allowing them to sneak it from me.
I love watching the Ravens play defense because they will do that to you.
Yep.
Yeah. They will come at you at the most critical moment in a game. You will not see a safety out there because he's up on the line and everybody's coming at you, and they dare you to make the play.
Yeah, they got beat their first game doing it.
Then they lose sometimes, but they win more than they lose.
But they came back and won 2 in a row. You know, that happens. You be aggressive.
Because you got to make Dak is what we call see it and throw quarterback, like Justin Herbert. Waits, and throws a fastball. He's super accurate. He'll only that's why he doesn't turn it over, because he waits till the guy breaks open because he knows he can complete it. So which means if you pressure him, that's when he might throw it up because he takes a little bit longer. but he's so accurate, and their line gives him such protection. Jason's right. Like, what are you going to do tonight to impact this guy to get rid of the football quicker?
So isn't tonight the night? I'm on your side here because I feel like Dak's a smart quarterback, but he can only go by what he knows. And right now, the Eagles tape will tell you they're not coming after you.
They're not coming after you, and then you have a guy that's calm and have no incentive if the D-line is not getting home to throw the ball. Right. So therefore, he extend the play. When you extend the play in zone defense, it's always a big play.
Absolutely. And by the way, that's an Eagles D-line that now doesn't have Brandon Grant.
Yeah.
And its depth will be tested. So I still think this might be the night, Monday night, prime time, where maybe you see Jonathan Gannon pull out something different than we haven't seen yet, because I do think it's a fair question to ask. The stats are lopsided, right? There's not a lot of sacks. There's no turnovers. Only one of two teams that has not produced a takeaway yet. But the scoring defense is one of the best in the league. So something is not I guess what I'd say is this sustainable to be this kind of defense, not have a lot of sacks, have no turnovers, and still be a top 5 scoring defense?
Yeah.
That to me feels like it's a little unrealistic.
Yeah, we have to be able to, we got to be able to throw some blitzes in there. We have to. It can't be lower half, 31st. Can't.
Sure. Adam, what do you think? Do you expect something different, or do you think
other than coverages to do something that he hasn't shown, maybe with post-snap disguise? I'm a little bit surprised. The guy worked for Mike Zimmer, right?
Yeah.
Father of the double A gap blitz, and he's not doing it. No, I know. Again, it's only 2 games.
Right.
And there are 17 games.
That was a thing, too.
But, man, I thought for sure we'd see that.
Right.
There have been a couple things we just haven't seen from Gannon, and that's the thing, is that no mystery. Like, it's funny. You're right that they're not giving a lot of points.
Yeah.
But they're not doing anything. At some point, they're going to figure this guy out. That's kind of, I think, where the way you guys are going.
Yeah.
At some point, dude, you're going to have to do something, because you're not going to keep getting lucky now, like tonight. So if they're playing zone, they're going for them cover 2, 3, 6, 4, which is great. That means you're changing up your coverages. But they're zone beaters. Blake Jarwin's the most athletic tight end Dallas has.
Yeah.
He could be a factor tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think personnel has something to do with this, as far as what they have at linebacker, what the system or do you think it might be he comes from a system in Indianapolis where they don't blitz either?
Yeah,
they got a strong line in Indianapolis.
I don't think that it's a personnel thing. I just think it's a comfort thing. Knowing what that's what zone does. Zone gives you a comfort of you're not going to blow an assignment, you're not going to take too many chances. But the only thing about zone is you have to pray and hope that the other team makes a mistake. And when you have a team that has a good offensive line and a veteran quarterback, the chances of them making a mistake is low. So therefore, you have to make them make a mistake, that's what we're saying.
Sure. All right, well, while Dak looks to improve to 6-3 career tonight against the Eagles, we know that his teammates on defense are going to be looking to come after Jalen Hurts. Now, we already talked about Dallas's defensive line. It's beat up. Yes, they get Randy Gregory back, but no DeMarcus Lawrence, who has, I would say Lane Johnson's done a pretty good job against DeMarcus Lawrence in the past, but you still always have to worry about him. But tonight we will see how the Cowboys plan to use rookie Micah Parsons, their first-round pick out of...
Oh, my God.
Come on, say the words.
I'm not saying it.
Penn State. And he was pretty impressive last week, and they used him as an edge rusher. Adam, I know you've talked to some people about him. How did they use him in rush situations?
Oh, he got upfield. He got after Justin Herbert, no question about it. See, tonight, he'll line up at the end some. Terrell Basham, you might remember, is a draftee of the Colts. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. He's more... You'd rather have him as your fourth end, not your second end. Randy Gregory's back, so there's your rotation there. They're not going to be great at D-tackle tonight because of all the guys out. Odigizua is a third-rounder, who's smaller, about 280. You'll have to be in there. Brent Urban, who's a journeyman, former draftee, I believe, of the Ravens, been with the Bears. He'll be in there. There's just going to be an opportunity here. I know that Brandon Brooks is out. I know that Mailata's out, but it should be good enough for protection here. And also, again, running the football with Miles Sanders, by the way, has looked great. That's not been the problem. It's just that they've not used him enough. And the other thing is, we've not seen enough of the screen game. I want to see more of that this week. We saw some in
counteract that aggression.
Right. Let's see some screen game because the Eagles have it, and they've got explosion at running back.
So if you're if you're Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn tonight, and you know that Micah Parsons last week played left side and right side. When he played up against Rashawn Slater, it was a classic Big Ten matchup there. It was a little bit difficult. When they played him on the right side, he got a sack. He wound up finishing with 8 pressures, so he did a pretty good job in his first role. I mean, if you don't put him across Andre Dillard a few times tonight,
you have to.
Then it's malpractice, right?
Speed the power.
Right. Now, everybody's worried about that. But if we're going to say one thing Andre Dillard that we expect out of him based on his college tape is that he handles the speed rusher better than the bull rusher. Now, I'm not trying to say Micah Parsons is only speed because he's an athlete. He's very tough. But you would try to think he would test him first around the edges, and this is going to be big for Andre Dillard. Can he hold off Micah Parsons?
You just wonder how deflated Andre Dillard's confidence is. Because the things that he was good at when he was coming out of college is a little bit different now that he's gotten beat out a few times. He had some bad press, people questioning whether he should have been picked in the first round. Like, all of those things play in on your confidence. I know that he's a pro, and the easy thing is to say, oh, he's a pro, he should. But, again, I don't know if this is the Andre Dillard that was in his first year. This is the Andre Dillard that's been a little bit maligned.
Yeah.
And his confidence is hurting right now.
Right.
So I don't know what he'll be good at. Hopefully he's still good at the speed rusher, which will benefit us tonight. But I think they're going to get some pressure there with Randy Gregory or him. They'll switch it out and figure it out.
See, now what you said is and I was holding off. You brought it up first, so blame him.
Oh my gosh!
Is when I think about that 2006 game with Winston Justice, the common thread there is that at the time Winston was viewed as somebody whose inability to get on the field and perform was related to his lack of toughness, and that is just wasn't that physical. I mean, plus he's playing with Runyon and Trey Thomas there. I mean, he couldn't have been more opposite in that way. And then here you have him filling in for Jordan Mailata, who is just enormous and is learning how to use that aggressiveness and that big body. So
it's very similar.
Yeah,
it's eerily similar.
There's some similarities there. Which is not good.
It isn't, and I remember Winston, and Winston's biggest problem again was his size. He was a big guy, not that heavy.
Right.
And if they got into his body, they can move him. And that's the same thing for Andre Dillard. Very, very quick off the ball. He'll be all of that. But again, I see it. I see it as a chance.
Let me tell you, when you think about that game, the Winston Justice game, there's 2 things that come to mind. One, Winston Justice getting abused by OCU Manura and a little bit of Justin Tucker straight hand in that game too.
Oh my
and
gosh.
2, the big question, Adam. Do you remember what the big question is?
All I know is why didn't Andy Reid help him?
Why didn't Andy Reid help him?
But I don't think you go into this game thinking that coaches will tell you.
You don't start off right now?
No, you don't. You help when you need to help. Doug Peterson and Andy Reid believe in the same thing. 5-man protection.
5 out.
Now, if you know that your guy is struggling in the first quarter and it's repetitive, then you got to help him. Andy Reid for never got a straight answer. He just never helped. He never helped Winston Justice in that game. I don't know why.
Well, we didn't help a bunch. We didn't have to help a bunch prior to that, right? You got to understand, when Trey Thomas was in his prime, you didn't have to help him much. Of course. John Runyon, you may have to chip him because Strahan would get him, you know, but that was with the tight end. But now you're talking about other people helping, the left side, right? Now you're talking about the running back or receiver. After that game, we chipped everybody, right? Avant, come in, go chip them.
Really?
We chipped everybody after that game.
That's what you call a delayed reaction.
Oh, my gosh.
So in practice, they said, hey, listen, I think we're going to need you to help this game. Or did they do it in the game?
It was built in, right? It was built in our plays. It would be, 81 chip or what have you, and I knew, okay. And it was only a few guys that was hard to chip. James Harrison was extremely hard to chip.
Oh, I'm sure.
DeMarcus Ware was the hardest to chip because his arms were so long, right? And he would throw you right into the tackle, So and he would get back at you too on punt, when defenses stay, so you didn't want to cut the guys, So.
Right. So listen, let me ask you this philosophically. I get it. You want 5 outlets on every play. Yep. You also know though you're on your backup left tackle Monday night in Dallas. Is it not too crazy to think, okay, you can still get 5 outlets with a chip, but is it not crazy to try to start the game helping him out with at least a chip?
So
why do you wait for the sacks to happen and then say, I'll adjust now?
Oh, excuse me. Based on what he's shown this preseason, in practice, in a few of the games, what have you, I'm starting out with the chip. and now you hope that you can get play action that can make up for the lack of man that's out. Because what play action will do if you get that chip is bring the linebackers forward. Now, therefore, you don't have to worry about 5 people in a route concept, because you can get those guys close to the line of scrimmage, you still can get behind them.
Right.
So that's when chips are the best, is when you can get the linebackers forward. So usually play action goes along with that.
Okay. Well, we'll see what Nick Sirianni does. Obviously, that will come under the microscope big time tonight. Adam, you mentioned Dan Quinn and the change in defensive philosophy from Atlanta to Dallas. More man?
Oh my goodness, it's their number 11 in the NFL, playing about 39% man.
Wow.
That is really high. Nobody plays more man than the Saints do. They're actually about 75, 76%. Eagles are lowest at 9% man. It is interesting. You typically don't see that. Guys, whenever coordinators, they just continue to call the same offense or defense wherever they go. But Quinn, to his credit, and this brings into the question, when they're in man, who does Trayvon Diggs cover? I would think it's got to be in Devontae Smith. No?
No, I would think so. I mean,
he's been following. He's been shadowing the best player.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was something that's been talked about in the offseason with Quinn and him. And he's taken on the challenge, and he's been doing well at it. And so I think it would be Devontae Smith, but I don't necessarily know, based on our ability as receivers, if it's even necessary. I think the Cowboys should go left and right, because we haven't shown that one of these receivers can beat you consistently.
Right.
Until that guy emerges, if Devontae Smith is having a great game, why go through the trouble of shadowing? Because shadowing takes a lot of coordination on the back end, because you got guys out of position a lot of times. You may have Jordan Lewis, who's the nickel guy, out a little bit further, matched up with a different person. So it's a little bit tricky when it comes to defensive, just integrity. So if you don't have to do it, don't do it.
All right, back to Parson, and I don't want to, make you strain.
Oh my God!
But I know you watched. Were you impressed? I mean,
I was.
Did you see
impressed.
a rookie who's just out there trying to rush the quarterback, or do you see someone who's got some good techniques? Because remember, this is not what he did at Penn State.
No, this is not what he. But he's a superior athlete, and that's hard to say in the National Football League, because you have pro athletes, and then you have those that would just douse with a little more from God.
Right.
And he's one of those guys that are superior talent, like has a superior skill set and talent. So I think that it's just a freakish athletic ability. He's super strong. When you're that strong and you can bend like he can, get low, it just presents a boatload of problems. And he better not do this too well, because they may think about putting on 15 pounds and doing it permanently.
No.
So he better watch out.
Well, what's the coaching point for Andre Dillard then? Because this guy does not have a bunch of refined moves. I'm not saying it's going to be easy for Dillard, but it's not like.
If I were Andre Dillard, I would invite him to bull rush me. Because I think that he can overpower a guy like Michael Parsons. So what that means is set out the ball at your 45 and invite him to go inside so you can swallow him up.
Right.
That would be my game plan. Let's take care of the edge, and then my girth, my big body can handle the rest. That's what I would think.
You would think. I mean, that's where you want Andre Dillard. And remember, he put on weight last year before he got hurt, and then he came back to camp this year. He talked about being mentally tougher.
He's been much
talked
bigger
about
physically,
being physically
yeah.
tougher. I think you can see the addition of the weight to him. He is physically bigger and stronger. And look, you're going up against Josh Sweat every day in practice. That's not easy either. But you certainly need to win a few battles every once in a while too.
Yeah.
But I don't know that Parson and Sweat are comparable in how they go about rushing the passer. So maybe there are some
Sweat's much
elements.
longer physically.
That's my point. More physical,
34
more
and a half
bull
inch
rush.
arms.
Yeah.
Parsons, at the Penn State Pro Day, 6'3", 1/10 of an inch, 245. His 40 was, I can't believe this is correct, but this is definitely correct. It's from an NFL team. I'm looking at it. 4.36 is ridiculous. It tells you how explosive he is. Arms aren't long; they're short, 31 and a half. But his explosiveness, I'm interested in when he's lined up. When they line up at the end, and I'm sure they'll do it against Dillard. I'm interested to see what Dillard does. Try to slow him down. Does he get his punch in? Does he let him get into him? That's a matchup to watch tonight.
I feel like this is it. Like if Andre Dillard holds his own, like he's gonna lose some. We know that, This game can be a game. If he is completely unprepared for this moment, it's going to be a long night.
Ooh.
Yeah, it could be a long night, and I think it goes just with the offense in general.
Yeah.
Right, Nick Sirianni's play calling,
Right.
Jalen Hurts getting to a
That's
second
another thing.
read.
You don't want Jalen thinking,
A bunch of things, right?
yeah.
Because when he's uncomfortable, he's going to go to his utility belt. Remember, he isn't refined enough to go and sit in that pocket. We
Right.
saw it last game when he got a little bit uncomfortable. He started to move around a little bit more. He made some plays, but that's not what we want from a quarterback consistently.
All right, we are going to take a quick break and pause to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars, and that includes the voice of the Eagles, Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, a big thank you to our friends at Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA. If you go out there, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You'll get a great deal. Speaking of a great deal, we're here, Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, Jack's Bar and Grill. It's awesome here. There are people just coming in to the casino right now, placing wagers, getting ready, eating some good food, drinking some beverages. I'm not going to snitch anybody out. I'm just saying there's some beverage drinking going on out there. And really, it's the big screen TVs. I mean, if you guys could come in here and check out how many big, enormous flat screen TVs there are in the sportsbook, I mean, it's like a shock to the solar plexus. That's how great it is.
Growing up here in Philly, I never thought I'd see the day when you could bet on pro sports, but you can. I mean, it's just. And then I remember a couple weeks ago when we were here, I saw one of the lines move. It's just really, it's surreal to see that because we just never thought pro sports gambling would be here and legal, but it is, and it's awesome here at Rivers.
It's been a fantastic way to make me poorer. So thank you for that. No, seriously, come on down and see our show. We love having a little crowd there. We interact, we say hi. Jason Avant does some dances. It's a great time. You got to come out and see it. Yeah, he gets his little boogie on. Speaking of Jason Avant, his co-host is of the Q&A show, Quentin Michael, former Eagles Pro Bowl safety. Their show drops every Thursday at 6 a.m., but we also do a segment with Q for this show called Q's Views. And in this episode, we have a lot of Eagles Dallas to talk about. So let's listen to Q's Views right now. All right, we're here with former Eagles safety Quentin Michael, co-star of the Q&A show on Inside the Birds. What's going on, Q? It's Dallas week. I know you're fired up about that, right?
Yeah, man. You know, I'm excited. It's always one of them weeks, man. You just wake up angry and ready to go.
All right. Well, hopefully you're not too angry to do this, but we'll talk about Dallas in a minute. I want to start off just by asking you something philosophically. Coaches and players spend a lot of week preparing for the opponent, going through scouting reports, watching film, trying to figure out the best course of attack. And as someone who's played and also does some coaching, how tough is it to find that balance between trying to attack your opponent's weakness, but also doing what you do best?
Yeah, you know, that's one of the toughest thing. And I've certainly as a coach and as certainly as a player, I've been fallen a victim of trying to do too much. A lot of times you study and you try to figure a team out and you try to break them down and you got them down to a T, and then you go into the game and they don't even do what you expected them to do, and then you're like, well, I wasted all that time, right? And so it's a very, very fine line. And I think that the general rule for me, and I'm still learning as a defensive coordinator now at the high school, is to really understand the team that you're playing, but stay within your boundaries, stay within your normal game plan, stay within your normal defense or your normal offense, and let the rest take care of itself. So I think if you do those things, you should be always fine.
When you look at the Eagles game against the 49ers, the 17-11 loss, and you saw how different the offensive output was compared to the week before, yet so many different shots downfield against that 49ers cornerback tandem, do you think maybe they got out of their element as far as what they do best and were trying to do something that was more catered toward attacking the opponent?
Yeah, I definitely think, and I do think that was the right way to approach the game plan, is to push the ball down the field, take advantage of your star receivers against their virtually unknown secondary. You knew what kind of coverage they were going to be. It was going to be single coverage, basically cover three, man down the field outside. So, you want to take advantage of those situations. But what I do think the fault came in and was once you weren't finding enough success there is what's the next step now? And so, it seemed like the Eagles, the offensive coaches just continued to just try to take shots down the field and they weren't quite hitting there. So, what's next? What's next? What's our next move? What's our next thing? So that's, I think, going forward, I think Sirianni will do a better job of having the adjustments ready in a quicker succession than last week.
Nick Sirianni talks about players, not play calls, and having to remember that. When you look at their offensive construct and you think about how they should attack on any given Sunday, who are the guys that have to have the ball in their hands most?
Oh, I think obviously you want to give all your playmakers the ball. So, obviously Miles needs to get his touches. I think certainly Quez Watkins is someone that needs to touch the ball at least, 4 or 5, or at least target it, somewhere around 8 or 9 times a game minimum. Devontae, of course, definitely in the red zone, you want to target him. So, and Jalen, I mean, Jalen, I think he's still coming along. I think if you get him the ball early, I think he's a type of player that if you get him the ball early and some short throws and let him do his thing and create, I think that he's the type of player that will just build as the game goes on. So I think really first, early on, need to get the ball to Miles and get the ball to Jalen. And then once teams start to kind of start keying on those two players, then that's when you hit them over the top with Devontae, and that's when you hit them over the top with Quez, and you just put them away. So I think if you can do those things and get the ball to those guys early and then let the rest of the game come to them, I think they'll be just fine.
Where do you think Dallas Goedert fits into the mix, or has that become complicated with Zach Ertz still on the team and them trying to figure that part out?
I don't think it's complicated. I think last week it was complicated because I saw what I saw often was Dallas having chip duty, on Nick Bosa. He had a lot of you know one by one wing sets where he's chipping before he gets into his route. And so anytime you have to do that with your tight ends, you're not really getting them into their route quick enough to really be part of the main progression. And so I think this week it'll be a little bit different because there's no Bosa on the other side of the line of scrimmage. But I don't think it's going to be as big a deal each week as it was last week. I think he had to do what he had to do last week to help the team win. And I think now moving forward, if we don't need to use the chip as much, then we need to definitely get him involved in the game a little more.
Let's talk about defense. You mentioned on the Q&A show on Inside the Birds last week that you felt that people may not really truly understand the magnitude of Brandon Graham being lost for the year with the Achilles injury. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think obviously, what Brandon was able to do physically to the game was huge. His ability to play the run, his ability to rush the passer, his ability to play multiple positions on the line, that right there in itself was huge. But also the emotional impact on the team. A guy he's calling the huddle before the game. He's getting everybody fired up. He was also a guy when I was playing, even when he was younger, he was a guy that was always a positive influence on the team, a positive force on the team. And no matter how bad the game got, he'd go to everyone and he'd, hey, let's go. We're still in this. We in this. And it may sound silly for someone that's not a part of a locker room, but sometimes that's huge. And sometimes all it takes is to have a positive word from a teammate, a well-respected teammate, that'll make a huge difference on each player that he comes around with, each player that he comes into contact with. And not just defensive players. It could be offensive players and special teams players. So I think it's going to be a huge, huge loss for that locker room in terms of having that player that's going to lift everyone up and keep everyone focused on the one goal, and that's to win the game. And it's just tough, man. I hate to see a guy like that. I hate to see a thing like that happen to Brandon because he truly deserves to be out there each and every week, and he's a joy to be around. He's a joy as a teammate. And I had him as a teammate, and I'm sure those guys love him. So he's going to be missed.
I don't want to overstate things, but he might be as close to Brian Dawkins as far as what he means to the team and the city as you can get in the post Brian Dawkins era?
Yeah, I almost went there. I didn't want to quite go there. I feel like I always end up talking about Doc, and I always get asked questions about Doc. So I wasn't gonna quite go there, but you led me there. So, but yeah, I agree 100%. He's definitely the closest thing to that, and well deserved. That's an honorable thing to be known for, and much deserved for him.
Yeah, you and I can die on that hill together since we both agree. Let's talk about Dallas a little bit here. Dak Prescott has emerged into one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Whatever people put him, top 5, top 10. He's very steady. A good quarterback against both man and zone. A good quarterback versus the blitz and not blitz. So how do you attack this guy?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. He's, not only is he a very good quarterback, but he's got weapons galore. He's got a offensive coordinator that's, one of the top in the league and knows what he's doing. And so I think it's going to be tough. But I think the way to attack him is to definitely, you have to put pressure on him, and you have to be able to keep him in the pocket. And not because he's a threat to run, but I think if you keep him in the pocket, you can kind of keep him corralled and kind of keep his vision where you want it to be. You don't want his vision to be able to go fully from right to left or left to right to be able to scan the entire field. You want to keep him in the pocket to keep him solely looking at maybe one or two options, because if you can keep him in the pocket and keep his eyes down the field on maybe one or two options, but you're covering those options and you're taking those away right now and still getting pressure in his face, then you have a chance. But the second that you let him out of the pocket, he can move around and guys start running across the field and he's able to get to his second, third, and fourth option. Now you're going to have a long day. So I think the biggest way is, again, pressure, very, very good coverage, take away his first and his first 2 or 3 options and let the rest, lay where it goes. And it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be a tough task, but I think the Eagles are up for it.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Pressure and coverage is sometimes easier said than done, especially against quarterbacks like him. All right, I know you're mad because the Eagles and Cowboys are playing tonight, so you've been mad all week, like you said on Q&A, but it is time for your moment where you give the score and the winner. So what do you got?
Oh, this is going to be a tough one. I know. Listen, I know that I'm always pulling for the Eagles, but I just feel like this team always gets up for Dallas. I feel like if for nothing else, when we go down to Dallas, when we play in Dallas, we come ready to play. So I'm going to say the Eagles are going to win a shootout. I think this one's going to be a high scoring affair. I think both sides are going to light up the scoreboard. I'm going to say 34-31 Eagles.
All right, for those counting at home, 3 weeks, 3 times Quentin Michael has picked the Eagles to win. Just letting you guys know. All right, those were Q's views. Check out Q's show with Jason Avant. It's called Q&A on Inside the Birds. Comes out every week, every Thursday. And we'll see you again next week, Q. Thanks.
All right.
All right, that was former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quentin Michael for Q's Views. He's also co-host of the Q&A podcast on Inside the Birds. It'll drop Thursday at 6 a.m. with Quentin Michael and Jason Avant. Looking forward to that. It's always a great show. All right, hour 2 of Inside the Birds pregame live about to kick off. Also, Public Square and Rebel Hill are back. The team of James and Zach are behind the controls once again, bringing Inside the Birds to you in high definition with great graphics, videos, overlays, and more. Contact Public Square Media and Rebel Hill Productions to produce your webcast, podcast, live show, or anything else you can dream of. This team can bring it to life. As always, we thank our friends there at Public Square and Rebel Hill. All right, well, look, if the Eagles want to win today, if they want to protect the quarterback, we know that they're going to need a better effort from the new right guard. That's Landon Dickerson, the rookie from Alabama that they picked in the 2nd round. By the way, Alabama, you got Trayvon Diggs, Alabama. Right? Devontae Smith, Alabama. Amari Cooper, Alabama. Jalen Hurts started his career. Now, there's a lot of Alabama in this game now. I'm sure there's someone I'm missing that didn't play at Alabama. But clearly, Landon Dickerson, one of the more decorated offensive linemen to come out of that program, but he also came out of there with a lot of knee injuries, some surgeries. 37th overall pick the Eagles used on him, knowing that he had that kind of a medical history. And get this is what's amazing. Adam and I spoke about this the other day. He's back on the field before Rodney McLeod, despite the fact that it's his 4th surgery. And the last one just happened in the 2020 SEC championship game. Like literally the last college football game he played.
Yeah.
And now he's in the NFL and he's already back. He did not sparkle last week in his debut. How tough was that? Like, even if you're a high pick, and as Adam has mentioned, he's a 2nd-round pick who has 1st-round talent. How tough was that, Jason, to just walk into a game as an offensive lineman and have to go?
The maturity level is different. You know, if it's later in the season or maybe in the 2nd year, it's a little bit different because you're chomping at the bit to get in there. Earlier in the season where he's just coming off injury, we didn't know if he would be up or not last game. He ends up being up. And you go in and you're in the middle of it. You got Eric Armstead lined up on the other side of you, right. and some other pretty good defensive linemen. So I think it's a very, very hard ask without the tape, without the first team reps, without the simulation in practice. So I think it's a hard thing to ask. So I understand his struggles. This week there's no excuse. So hopefully he plays like the award-winning offensive lineman and All-American and 2nd-round pick that we drafted.
Sure. Adam, we have seen probably in the last 5 to 10 years guards start to get that 1st-round consideration a little bit more than maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Quentin Nelson, just a couple of years ago, top 10 pick.
That's all it takes.
What do you think Dickerson, based on what you heard about him, would have been if he had a completely clean medical
Top
slate?
20.
Top
for
20.
Sure. He's now we weren't totally sure if he'd be a 2-position guy, guard center.
Right.
But tape, leadership, strength, size, Alabama program, everything said he's the next great interior lineman. Like not quite as good as Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson is pretty much going to be a Hall of Famer unless something happens. He should be like Steve Hutchinson, but he's got the ability, Dickerson, if he could stay healthy, to eventually get to that elite level. It's going to take some time, and look, the guy's come back from yet another surgery. You can't expect him right away. As Jason said, this is his first full week of practice as a starter. Let's see how it looks. And yes, he should improve, as you said tonight. But over time, the next 5 to 7 weeks until Brooks is back, let's see what he does. Let's see what he can do.
I think it's safe to say that if Landon Dickerson does not work out because he's not a very good player or because he has another injury that's long-term, it's going to look bad for especially in the aftermath of the Sidney Jones pick. It's going to look pretty bad for the Eagles if this guy doesn't pan out.
Hold on. It's not that because
Sidney Jones? Okay.
There's a lot of things on the line for management. You got Jalen Hurts that's still an asterisk. You got Landon Dickerson, injuries, still an asterisk. You have Jalen Reagor, who's underperformed thus far, still an asterisk. You have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, still an asterisk. Like, when you start to go down and then you begin to look at the players that could have been picked in their stead.
We don't do that. We never talk about players who could have
This is Philadelphia. So when you think about all these things, at some point, we got to talk about management.
Absolutely.
So hopefully it turns out right and it turns out well. Devontae Smith is still an asterisk. Those are things that we have to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Obviously, this front office with their high picks in the past few years have Andre Dillard. I mean, we didn't even mention that.
Yeah.
He's a first-round pick.
Needs
to play like a competent NFL player. Now. Man, that list is getting longer and longer.
It's funny about Dillard. The Eagles got calls on Dillard. Talked to a couple teams that called the Eagles. They actually didn't act like they wanted to trade him. This is before the Milotics. This is within a week until the 53-man deadline.
Right.
Don't tell me
They
that.
acted like they didn't want to move him, which is surprising.
I think
Don't
that's,
tell me that.
I think that's understandable, Jay.
Seriously, isn't that crazy?
You don't have. Look, this team has been hurt. They got a lot of veterans on the O-line who have been hurt a lot lately. Right? None of their backups, like Jack Driscoll, was a nice right tackle. They don't see him as a left tackle. I don't mind holding on to him for this year to see if he can actually become a left tackle.
I don't mind a guy as a backup that's in year 10 that has 5, or 2-3 years left. Why not get that guy that's going to be a little bit cheaper, or not a little bit cheaper?
Like Raven Clark?
I don't mind that. But when you talk about a younger player that has value, and I can get a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick or a good player, which we need players. We need a corner.
Sure.
We needed a corner a long time. We need a linebacker.
Well, the question is, what were they offered then? I mean,
Right, exactly.
Were they given?
Right.
It was Howie dismissing 2nd and 3rd round
No,
picks.
no,
I have a hard time
no
thinking.
way.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
way.
No, that,
I don't think that was coming, but just one of the
player
2
could.
teams that I know called, they were like, man, Philly really wants to keep him, though I think this team knew that Mailata was going to be the guy. Nobody knew then they were going to give him this big extension. But think about it now, though. With Mailata out, if Dillard's traded, who's playing left? Brett Toth?
But they would have had to replace him.
They would have forced
Yeah,
them
they
to go
would
out
have
and
forced
get
them to
another
go
veteran,
get a veteran,
It's not easy.
guy.
Look what Jason.
Especially
Look what the
that
Bears
position.
did. Jason
Oh, my
Peterson,
gosh.
39 years old. He got housed yesterday.
It's amazing.
Oh my God.
It's amazing. He keeps getting jobs. God bless him. He's been a great
It's
Eagle.
hard to
but
find
I've been
left
saying for
tackles.
2
It
years.
is hard.
2 years he's been getting jobs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, listen, the good thing is about Landon Dickerson that there wasn't a harsher critic of Landon Dickerson's play than Landon Dickerson. He talked about it this week with the media in his video conference. Let's hear from what Landon Dickerson had to say.
Honestly, my play was not up to the standard that we've set here. I wasn't happy with the way I played, so, it's been the focus this week is correcting all of the mistakes I had and what I need to work on.
Hey, Landon, when you said that your play was not up to the standard, what specifically were the things that you felt weren't up to that standard?
I won't go into detail on that, but I just didn't feel like my play was satisfactory when it comes to expectations we've set, on the team and in the offensive line room.
Pro game and the difference that it was in college?
The game's a lot faster. Guys are a lot quicker, smarter, stronger. Everything gets bumped up a notch.
That was accountability you heard right there from Landon Dickerson, probably something you would expect from somebody who has a lot of pride and comes out of that Alabama program, knows he didn't play his best. I think Jason hit it on the head. You would expect no excuses this week. He's had all the preparation. Nick Sirianni did not hesitate to say he would be starting this week against the Cowboys, not going to Nate Herbig. So I'm going to ask this. He's a 2nd-round pick, a lot of expectations. Brandon Brooks is hurt right now. He's going to be out several weeks, we expect. Let's say Landon Dickerson plays really well over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Adam, what do they do when Brandon Brooks is ready to return?
All right, because it's funny, on our last show, I wasn't in our rundown, and you asked me, and I was such a
I like
good
that. I
question.
spring questions on him that are real tough.
Yeah, and I was like, I know it's a hypothetical, but guess what? It might happen. If he kicks ass, like, let's say he was clearly rusty last week. Let's say he progressively gets better. We know he's the future at either center or guard, whether it's Kelsey or for Brooks. That's why they drafted him. We know he's going to have to be a starter next year. Mm-hmm. If he really kicks ass and it's obvious he's got to play, they have to do the right thing. Now, here's the question with Brooks, right? He's signed through 2024, but by contract structure, I got this about an hour ago because I kind of thought we were going to go here. He's got a $13.4 million base salary Brooks does next season. With his injury history, he's now in his 30s. You can't pay it.
Right. The question is there guaranteed money?
There is. On the 3rd day of the league year, which is going to be March 18th, $9 million of his $13.4 million becomes fully guaranteed.
Oh.
You're not guaranteeing that unless the guy comes back and is the guy and plays and stays healthy. You won't even consider it. At the very least, if he plays well, you might still want to ask him for a pay cut because he's had, unfortunately, a lot of injuries.
Is there if they released him before the 3rd day of the new year?
Yeah, they don't have anything.
0.
Right, correct.
So you're
0.
either guaranteeing him 9 and then paying him 13 if he's on the team, or 0 and Landon Dickerson is your right guard next year. What do you think, Jay?
You always go with the hot hand. So we're assuming, because of the type of player Landon Dickerson is and his accountability, what he wants to do, that he's going to come in and play well. And if the team is solid and he's playing really well, you ride the hot hand, you get rid of that $9 million, that contract, and you go out and use it somewhere else. Just the bottom line, we know that Brandon Brooks is a fantastic player, but the injury history is starting to mount up.
The age.
You get older, these types of things happen, and you can't be stuck with a Jason Peters for a 4-year period like we've had in the past. At some point, like I said, we rewarded a lot of guys for winning the Super Bowl that we shouldn't have. Now, we have to learn from it. They say, act like you've been there. We've never been there when we won the Super Bowl. So we did some things that rookies make.
Try to
some
run
rookie
it back.
mistakes.
Sure,
You
run
can't
it
do
back.
it over again.
Sure. So theoretically, and we're a long ways away, we've got a lot to see, but theoretically, Brandon Brooks may have played his final game as an Eagle. Theoretically.
In terms of starting, maybe, yeah.
If Landon Dickerson
Starting, yeah.
is who we think he is.
Right.
If not, but chances are no, because our team figures out a way to make this hard up front.
That is true.
There's a lot
That is
of
true.
rotations and shuffles that go around, so you never know who would get hurt next.
That is true.
So you never know.
All right. Let's check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. Check them out at PHLSportsNation.com or on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Let's flip the sides of scrimmage here and talk about Josh Sweat, because here's a guy who he didn't really talk to the media after signing that huge deal.
Weird, yeah.
And then finally they brought him out and said, these guys kind of want to talk to you. And he was like, all right, I'll do it. And he came out and he talked about kind of being disappointed and not taking a minute earlier in his career to kind of reflect on where he's come from. I mean, this is a guy who, got drafted in the 4th round, was at Florida State, but a severe knee injury going back to high school, I think it was.
Yes, he almost
It jeopardized his career.
Not only that, it came within inches of ending that leg. I mean, it was bad.
Right,
it was very severe.
Right.
And the tape, the college tape showed him dragging that leg a lot. I know the Raiders I think the Raiders and a couple other teams I talked to before that draft had, I believe, a non-draftable grade because of the medical.
Wow.
Because you just never thought he could make it. And
Right.
I got to give the Eagles credit. I just remember his first year, he was just playing on rundowns. It was before he went on IR. He never really thought he'd be much more than a 4th end. This kid is, I would argue that I didn't believe it at first because people were talking about he's better than Clowney. And our buddy Greg Cosell said it's very clear he's better than Clowney. It's not even close. I'm like, all right. Well, Clowney hasn't been a player in like 3 years.
Right.
But when you see the length and his effort and his ability to disrupt, he's just gotten better and better and better, and the leg is no longer an issue. Now, I would say with an asterisk, I have no idea what happened last week with the snap counts.
Right.
I don't know why they 28 snaps. I don't understand it. You can't argue with the result because the run defense was good, but I don't understand why they did that.
Well, is it possible that under their new defensive line formation, where they're not in the wide 9 all the time, and now you've got a 3 technique and a 5 technique, that is not a position that they want Josh Sweat playing a whole lot, because that's a lot of run stop right there.
Yeah.
And you alluded to the knee, and it's clear that Ryan Kerrigan played more snaps than Josh Sweat for a reason. And by the way, Ryan Kerrigan's not been a 5 technique in his career either.
Yeah.
But they were thrown into a tizzy losing Brandon Graham and thought, let's go with Kerrigan more than Sweat. What did you make of that?
That could be something that Josh is not used to doing. Kerrigan may have practiced it, so therefore his snap count is higher. Usually in the first game like that, when there's a major injury, there are going to be some things that are off kilter, but they usually balance out in the next game or two when the coaches begin to see. I remember being in my 2nd year, and I was the 3rd receiver, but the way it shook out is that I went out of the game when we went to Eagle, or 4 receivers. And, it took them 3 weeks to realize, the coaches, because Hank Baskett was going in the game, they're like, hold on, something's not right here. So they started putting me back in there. So sometimes it auto-corrects after a while. It's just formation. A guy got hurt, and Kerrigan was the guy that was the substitute in that formation. That's all.
Sure. So it'll be interesting to see if that was just a kind of on-the-fly adjustment.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I have to think that this coaching staff is still going to monitor how many snaps Josh Sweat gets.
Well,
but now they're in the position of
Graham.
How do they do that without Brandon Graham? Because now you have to play Barnett and Sweat, and you're really down to Ryan Kerrigan and Teron Jackson.
Yeah, you may put Spencer outside, like William. You may
maybe
put
Jannard Avery,
well, Mike Parsons doing the same job, right? So he's played in before,
right.
He wasn't he was a linebacker, but it was still the same thing in a 3-4 defense.
Sure.
So I definitely think that Kerrigan in this position last game was the guy. Can Josh Sweat take on that brunt of reps? I don't know, because everyone say he's not carrying their leg around. I still think that he is carrying it. That's just me looking at him on.
One
I can
athlete
see
seeing
it
from another.
I can see that it's not the same gait. On his, I believe it's his right leg.
Not sure.
Yeah. So
right.
I think it's right leg. So it's not the same gait left and right. But that doesn't stop him from getting off the ball. It doesn't stop him from doing his job. It just looks a little weird.
Right.
And if it, even though he doesn't pass the eye test, doesn't mean he's not getting production.
Sure.
So can he do it? He has to do it because Derek Barnett has been AWOL, getting stupid penalties. You never know. Like, so I think you have to give him those reps and see if he can make it or not.
I mean, I think it's clear that the way they've used him early in his career has helped with that. Like, by monitoring it, he had never played more than 38% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Until this year. And even now, it's not like he's playing 70% of them now, right? So to me, that's helped him get to this level. And now the challenge is trying to navigate playing him maybe 40, 45% without 3 weeks from now, everybody, swelling in the knee and everybody, the plan just getting crumpled up.
This is the problem without Graham, who plays a ton of snaps, and everything that he does, you don't have him on the field. You don't have that fourth end. Remember, also, Kerrigan was signed here to be their fourth end. He's playing so much. He's now 33, which he turned in August.
Right.
You don't know how effective he's going to be. This Graham injury has an impact. Like, don't underestimate this.
No, I think it's big.
We know about the leadership and all that, and how talented he is. Let's just talk about how many snaps he eats up.
Right.
Now, and you mentioned Teron Jackson. I was told he may have to do it, but he's really not ready for being the fourth end.
Yeah,
which
maybe
might be 12 to 15 snaps.
Maybe it's Milton Williams
who can do it, right? He can do that.
How do you go out and pay this guy this money when you don't know if he can play more than 40% of the snaps?
Well,
I don't understand it. Like now, so what I'm saying to you guys is that they must think that his volume, his snap count can go up. That's the only way I can justify paying a guy that much money.
I would have to be. And now it has to go up, right? I mean, they don't have a choice.
He played 56% of snaps week one sweat and played far less than that percentage-wise.
Yeah.
We'll learn a lot tonight. If he's playing 40% without Graham, then there's something wrong.
Right.
If that better not happen. I mean, and as you said, you could play Milton Williams or Avery. You could help out to be the fourth end if you don't think Jackson's ready. But you didn't pay him $13.3 million to play him as a part-time player. That doesn't work.
All right, speaking of not playing, the Eagles inactives are out. Gardner Minshew inactive, Rodney McLeod inactive, Davion Taylor inactive, Jordan Mailata, of course, inactive, and the kid they signed off, the Jack Anderson, is it, from the Bills practice squad?
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Anderson, who, by the way, they really like.
Yeah.
Because I know the Bills liked him. They were not happy the Eagles. In fact, his preseason tape in the 3 games is apparently really good. Now, I don't know if he'll ever dress. He's a developmental player. But the Eagles have had luck with linemen they brought in. You got to trust Jeff Stoutland here. It's the bottom line. The luck they've had with Jeff Stoutland.
Yeah, as soon as I brought him in, I figured it had to be a Stoutland recommendation,
you would
right?
think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's stop talking about these line guys because, we got a wide receiver here. We need to get the real breakdown on the wide receivers. Jason, obviously, these Dallas Cowboys wide receivers are probably going to be the best tandem that the Eagles see. Well, they play the Chargers.
No, they play some
Mike
pretty good
Williams
guys.
And Keenan Allen. They got some good ones, but certainly
they play Chiefs too.
Yeah, the Chiefs. Well,
Tyreek Hill is enough for 2.
How about them just signing Josh Gordon to their practice squad too? So that'll be interesting. But certainly Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, really prolific weapons. I want to ask you to kind of break them down, specifically how they'll be defended tonight by Slay and Steve Nelson. But start with Amari. We already kind of talked about Amari's mentality, coming out of the game, not always be mentally there. But when he's in a role, he's one of the best receivers in this league. What does he do best?
Win at the line of scrimmage.
Big, strong guy, right?
No. He wins at the line of scrimmage with subtlety.
Oh, okay.
Amari Cooper makes you move out of the spot. It's equivalent to a guy like Kobe Bryant when he was young that could cross over, Allen Iverson when he was young when he can cross over, James Harden in basketball where he has a Euro step, those things.
Right.
Guys that can do a certain move that makes the guy get out of the way so he can continue on his path. He sells his double moves really well, right? A lot of guys that run double moves, they slow down on the first move. Amari Cooper speeds up on the first move to sell it and gets out of it. Great feet, great feel at the line of scrimmage. So I believe that he's one of the better route runners in the league. He's always going to be top 10 route runners in the league. So that's one way. And a guy like Mari Cooper, his game doesn't diminish. He's Tim Duncan.
Right.
Because he learns how to play the game with technique.
Mr. Fundamental.
It's not about his athleticism. He's going to be able to get open like this when he's 32, 33 years old. He may be in a slot doing it, but he's going to be around a long time because he has superior technical skills at wide receiver.
Right.
Yeah.
And CD Lamb, I believe they play mostly in the slot,
Yes,
correct?
Yeah.
correct. Yep.
Kind of a
Same.
long striding wide receiver, right?
But they're both of them are great route runners. They
Yeah.
create so much separation, and it's so different when you watch them on tape and you watch our receivers on tape. They have a knack for making people move. They're not tied up. Both of those guys are stronger players where they can fight through contact and create separation. Same foot, same shoulder with the lean. Being able to create separation at the line of scrimmage with subtle moves and great ball placement. That's a great recipe for getting guys open. That's what they just do that naturally. CeeDee Lamb, more acrobatic with the ball in the air than Mari Cooper. That's pretty much the biggest difference. Ball in his hands and more acrobatic when the ball is in the air. Yards after the catch, CeeDee Lamb is a little bit better and better adjustments when the ball is in the air.
Can he win consistently on the outside if he had to play there, CD Lamb?
Yes, with certain routes. And here's the thing. Is CeeDee Lamb, if you're going to line him up and run a go route every single time, he'll struggle. He's going to win some of those. But if you line him up and you run slants, you run daggers, there's guys that have made a living like this. Dez Bryant made a living like this. So can he play outside? Yes, he can play outside, but it's more beneficial for him to be in the slot.
I remember when CeeDee Lamb was coming out of Oklahoma 2 years ago, Adam, most people thought he was going to be the first wide receiver taken. Wound up being Henry Ruggs and then Judy, but there was some Jerry Judy. There was some debate going into the draft about whether it was going to be Lamb or Judy to be first off the board.
Yeah, Lamb attacks the football like his ability just to snatch it and run after the catch. That's what he's really good at. Now, the Cowboys would tell you this was not their plan to draft him. He just dropped to him, as you were talking about. So they went with him. And Gallup, who was starting, they moved him as their third receiver. Now Gallup is out tonight. He's on injured reserve with a calf strain. By the way, Donovan Wilson is inactive, the safety. She'll get their inactives. None were surprising.
Right.
Wilson was the only one he was doubtful anyway, but he's not playing. But I'm interested to see what they do tonight to attack the Eagles' zone defense, because these guys get open very quickly into the routes, and the Eagles don't give up anything deep. So what are they going to do to keep these guys from having? The thing that killed the Eagles last week was long, sustained drives, right? Now, I know someone was on the ground, but what are the Eagles going to do to make sure these guys don't beat them?
No, I know. It feels like in the first two games, the Eagles have been more focused on stopping like a Ridley and a Pitts, or last week they were, whether it was Debo or Ayuk, and they'll be okay giving up some running yards on the ground. I don't know if that's the plan of attack that you have against Dallas. I think people think that Zeke is now, dead and buried, but last year they were saying that about Zeke, and he had 19 carries for 105 yards and a touchdown, and now you've got Tony Pollard to worry about. This is probably, I think without question, the most diversified offense the Eagles are going to face this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Which one scares you more, Pollard or Zeke? I still think Zeke is the scarier guy, but I know Pollard has the burst.
Pollard is playing unbelievable. And to me, if I'm the GM, there's no way I'm bringing Zeke back at this rate next year. I'm just not. If Tony Pollard continues to play like
you
this,
think he could carry the ball as much as Zeke, or do you think the offense doesn't require that anymore?
Yeah. It's just that the offense doesn't require that, and you can't have big guys, big number guys at running back and quarterback and receiver. You just can't have all three. You can have two, and you need somebody on defense. So at some point with Dak Prescott's contract, you got to get rid of Zeke anyway, and this is only making it sooner that Tony Pollard's playing well.
Well, listen, I don't like to say anything nice about an Ohio State player any much as you do, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like Zeke is still that type of player that if you start saying Amari and you start talking about CD and you start not worrying about the run, that's a good offensive line, and he's still a big guy. He can hurt you. Like I said, last year he had over 100 yards against the Eagles.
Here's the thing. They will go away from the run by themselves just because of the offensive play caller. Right? So they were gouging the Chargers in the run game, gouging them.
Nearly 200 yards.
Yeah.
Gouging them, but they still would go to the pass 5-6 times in a row. It's something that they want. I guess they want balance. They won't stay on track and just continue to bury a team with the run game. So I think they'll take themselves out of the run game with the play call.
It's crazy. I mean, the man's 24th in the league in rushing, which is very low.
Yeah.
He seems to be. If you go look at Zeke Elliott's stats, they have decreased yards per rushing yards per game, and yards per carry have been decreasing every year.
Pretty much,
I mean, he was over 100 some odd yards a couple of years ago.
2 years ago he was the man. Last year the fumbles. It was crazy.
The fumbles were bad
without Dak, but by contract structure, they're kind of stuck with him through next season.
Are they?
Yeah, his base salary became fully guaranteed a year in advance of $12.4 million.
Oof.
They did an advance guarantee on his contract, but after 22, they could cut him and owe him absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I could see 22 being his last year.
Well, in his 8 games against the Eagles, right, 5 times over 100 yards rushing. We've got 27 for 103, 19 for 151, 28 for 113, 22 for 111. I'm not saying a whole lot of 30s here. You know what I'm saying? Like, 19 for 105 last year, 98.6 yards per game, and 4.7 yards per carry against the Eagles in his career.
Here's one thing. Let's talk about Pollard for a second. Screen game with him, he's super explosive. He's way more explosive than Zeke. These Eagles linebackers can be had in coverage, and I know Wilson's brought here because he could cover, but this guy's got a second gear. I'm interested to see tonight what they do with Pollard.
The thing about Zeke is that, and this is something that's across the NFL, the general manager has to be able to evaluate when you play guys how money affects people. And it's something that we don't talk about much, but some guys do well with money, some guys don't do well with money. Since Zeke has gotten paid, we haven't heard much from him. And it's a direct sign that maybe he loves stuff outside of the game more than the game.
That's always been the kind of question mark with Ezekiel Elliott, but not against the Eagles. He saved some of his best. So we'll see tonight if the Eagles are able to stop Zeke or if it's just another game where he's hurdling. I remember that hurdle. Was it Chandon Sullivan? He jumped over that guy.
Please don't say the name Chandon Sullivan.
I'm sorry. Hey, Chandon Sullivan's playing with the Packers. So big matchup for the Eagles.
And he does well, too, in the slot for him, too. That's the funniest thing ever. He does well for him.
Chandon Sullivan for the Packers? Yeah, there have been a couple of guys who have played for the Eagles and you thought were just not good, and then they went on to a different team, and we've seen them do all right. Well, listen, we need to do all right because this is the most important segment of the show. We're going to close it out with our predictions, let you know what we see. Got some interesting ones tonight. First, I'm going to remind everybody about our friends from BetQL. If you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you've got to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets. They've got a best bet computer model that scans over 350,000 unique bets per year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all sports. Gives you the reason behind why you should place the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads, over-unders, and player props. And if you don't want to use their model, if you prefer to do your research on their own, like my man Jason Avant with all his notes here, then BetQL's got all the necessary tools for your betting research needs. They got everything from sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a scoreboard to track your success. So head to try.betql.co/ITB or just download the app at the App Store or Google Play Store now to get BetQL. Enter the discount code ITB at payment checkout for 25% off any of their subscription offerings. So you can check out their sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at any one of the many sportsbook listed. So don't miss out on your chance to beat your sportsbook this football season using BetQL. All right, before we give our picks, we're going to do players of the game.
Okay.
So, Adam, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Who's going to be the player of the game for the Eagles tonight?
Well, I'm going to go to the well.
I'm sorry, player of the game. I was presumptuous there when I said Eagles.
Well, I'm going to go to the well again.
Okay.
I'm going to pick Dallas Goedert. I choose to believe Nick Sirianni has learned his lesson about putting players over plays. Plays will be able to be had against this Dallas defense. Goddard must be the guy in the middle of the field. If he's not, I've got some serious questions about this guy as a play caller.
All right, so big night for Dallas in Dallas.
Correct.
Technically Arlington, but you know.
And he got robbed 3 years ago in that 75-yard play.
That offensive pass interference.
Exactly.
That was awful.
Absolutely
Terrible.
did not push off.
Absolutely not. All right, Jason Avant, the moment is yours. Who is going to be the player of the game?
I hate to do this. I hate to say this, and because it hurts my heart to do this and say this, but I think the player of the game is going to be Dak Prescott. The reason I say this is that Our defense, 91% zone. The inability to get to the quarterback last game just a few times just touched Jimmy Garoppolo. So when you consider that zone defense, lack of pass rush, Brandon Graham being hurt is going to present a problem with Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Wilson, Jarwin, those guys in the pass game, even Tony Pollard. So I think that it's just right with our defensive scheme and this team for Dak Prescott to be the player of the game. I'm sorry to do that.
Everybody knows who to blame.
Oh my
when
God!
They get mad.
Hey, listen, the only time I've ever done this, we won.
Well, then there you go. People will forgive you then if that happens. For me, I'm picking Miles Sanders as my player of the game tonight. One thing that jumps out is that the Eagles' offensive line, even with two backups, averages about 325 up front.
Yep.
And this depleted Dallas defensive line averages about 270 something. So we're talking about a good 50 to 55 pounds of girth and mass, as we were talking. Mass kicks ass, right?
Yeah.
Juan Castillo used to say that all the time.
Big people beat up little people. Chip Kelly.
I think people would rather have me quote Juan Castillo than Chip Kelly, but nonetheless.
After yesterday with the Bears, I don't know.
I know. That adage holds true. So I see Miles Sanders having some explosive runs tonight and really carrying this offense as it still tries to figure out what it's going to be. All right, now we'll give our picks for the game. Remember, when you want to wager on the game, you come here to the Rivers Sportsbook. Sundays are made for football at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Every Sunday from now until the end of the season, enjoy $7 food specials right here in Jack's Bar and Grill. Half-price gourmet burgers at Hugo's Chop House, drink specials and more. And not only that, but every time the Birds score, you score when you are actively planning with your Rush Rewards card in our Bird's Nest pit in front of the sportsbook. I've seen it. It's awesome. You got to check out the Bird's Nest pit in front of the sportsbook. And remember, you could be a winner at Rivers Casino Philadelphia, where Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Is Philly going to be a winner tonight? The line, it doesn't say so. It says the Eagles are 3-point underdogs in Dallas with an over-under of 51.5 according to the Bet Rivers Sportsbook line. Adam, what's the score? Who wins?
Well, I rarely do this in the history of our show. This is year number 4. But I am changing my pick, and I'll explain why. I thought it'd be Dallas. See, I thought it'd be Dallas, right? The whole time I said it was going to be Dallas.
Right.
But I'm going with the Eagles. Why am I doing that? Now that we know
I don't know,
all
they
the
lose their left tackle and you go,
No, but here's the thing. Dallas has so many guys down the defensive line. I am choosing to pick Nick Sirianni and the Eagles this time. I'm going to take Sirianni at his word. He's picking players over plays, where he took plays clearly over players. This is it. I'm taking the Eagles 24-20 to beat the Cowboys.
Adam is 1-1 on the year, by the way. I know we had some technical difficulties last week, but he did pick the Eagles, so he got a loss on that.
I got a loss. I got them week 1.
Jason, you had picked the Eagles last week too. So you
Yeah,
are
so I'm 1-1.
What do you see this week? I think we already know after your player of the game.
After my player of the game, I hate to do this. This is not in my heart. I want the Birds to win. I'll be rooting for them tonight. However, I think that it's too much to overcome Brandon Graham. I think that it's too much to overcome the Dallas Cowboys offense. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys 27-20. It hurts me to say that and think about it, but I'm picking the Cowboys 27-20. Hopefully I'm wrong.
It hurts me to know the backlash you're going to get.
Yeah, I'm going to get it, but I gotta go with my mind over my heart.
All right. Well, I actually improved to 1-1 last week because I picked the Niners and they did win the game. I picked against the Eagles, obviously, the first 2 weeks, but I am going with the Eagles tonight. I actually think that Dallas's depletion up front on defensive line is going to be a help to the Eagles as they work through their offensive issues. You, I think, have brought up the phrase every once in a while, Dallas is going to Dallas. Yeah. And I feel like tonight is a great opportunity for them to make a statement, and they're not going to make it. Okay. So I see the Eagles winning tonight. I got them winning 24-21. Your co-host, Quentin Michael, has the Eagles winning 44-41. So that's everybody picking the Eagles except for Quentin Michael.
Oh, to Jason.
All right. All right. That's going to be it for the show. Remember, put your money down on the Bet Rivers app or here at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Get all the statistical trends and data with BetQL. Big thanks to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. Big thanks to Sky Motor Cars, BetQL, our team at Rebel Hill and Public Square, our production crew. They're great. All of you for watching. I'm sorry we didn't get to too many of the comments, but thank you to those who left some really nice comments. And enjoy the game tonight, and make sure you check out the Inside the Birds podcast. That'll drop 6 a.m. tomorrow for all the latest. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.